Wow, what a cliffhanger. Welcome to the show, folks. I just finished it. Sorry I'm running late, but my my tablet was acting up, and I thought I had a little bit more time than it was showing, but oh man.
So
How's
you
it
were
going,
just listening
guys?
to it?
Welcome to the show.
We're running late because you were still listening to the book.
Yes.
I
Yes.
should,
Yes.
I finished it a couple hours ago.
I had to put
I
it
thought
on.
I had time. And I was, mind you, I was listening to the last 15 minutes on time and a half speed because double speed is just too much.
Three and a half times speed for me, bro. Or I'd
Really?
still be 2 hours to go.
Ah. So welcome to the show, guys. Omen, Crafting Gamer, Justin. Uh, I haven't heard from Grandma, so I don't know what's up with that. Dark Knight said he wasn't going to make it. I don't know if that's a permanent thing or not. Hopefully, it's not because I enjoy having him here.
well, to be fair, it's 2 a.m. where he is.
I know. He was on a show with
No
Dean
excuses.
James and a whole peanut gallery of folks, and I asked him, and he's like, no, and I'm like, no worries. The time difference is pretty horrific, so I don't blame him. But I do hope that he read the book, and I don't know about you guys, but damn it, now I got to listen to book 3. And
Well, it
mind you,
depends
I
on
kind
who
of remembered
picks.
how it was going to end. But let's get into it. Did you guys enjoy the book?
Yeah, it was
Of
okay.
course. Yeah, absolutely.
Up
We
to the
get to
last
pick up
quarter.
Yeah, we got to pick up where he left off, which was, did everyone live on Mars?
What was that, Crafting?
I said I enjoyed it up to the last quarter. As soon as the trial hit, I lost all interest, and I just had to power through it.
What was wrong with the trial? I mean, it was,
It's a rigged trial, but he's the main character, so he's not going to die. He's going to get out, and it's like, what was the point of the fucking trial?
well, because verisimilitude, I guess, or some other big word that I don't know the meaning of.
but
I mean,
you're
all you have to
forgetting.
do is look at the big old stack of books left to go. Sure, there's Thuvia, Maid of Mars, and Lana of Gathol, but there's still like 6 or 7 other books that are.
Don't
Excuse me,
forget,
Sean.
it's still a serialized thing, and you can pay attention to where the breaks are.
Yeah.
And the
Um,
other part is we care about the journey, not the destination as much, which everyone seems to forget about. So.
Well,
it's
just how's he going to get out of it? Because obviously the trial was the cliffhanger to the previous story.
Yeah, that's like picking up a Batman or Superman, thinking, "Oh no, this could be it for Batman." Yeah, right.
Mhm.
It's you gotta suspend your disbelief, and I had no problem with it. And I had read this before, and I was like, "Oh my god, is this the one where they end at the thing?" And I'm like, "Oh yeah, it is." This is gonna suck because I don't remember what happened after that. Clearly, they go on to, you know, survive.
It's fairly juvenile writing too, right? So,
it doesn't help that whoever did the audiobook, at least for me, does it so damn slowly. Because when I first started, I was like, "Oh god, this is gonna take forever," and then I was like, you know what? I kind of got a little more into it when I sped it up last time. I do it to 1.5 speed, and all of a sudden, hey, I can actually get into this.
Well,
the reason that I had
you sent that juvenile comment. I absolutely love his style of writing. In some respects, there's some things that I was like irritated. Let's get into that first, shall we? Because we all know the favorite character, should be John Carter. But was there something that annoyed you other than the word chagrin?
No.
Does anybody use that word? I mean, seriously, other
than
writers, I can't remember.
I chagrin the fact that you are
surprised.
Hey, just because you're not used to like higher language is
what the shit is that? That's like all I read. I'm struggling through Razor Fist's book right now. Oh my god, we'll talk about that later. That's all I read. I read the same stuff you do, Omen.
But how much have you heard? Much to his chagrin, that is like the everywhere.
Albeit, mostly what I read is, cruising up on 100 years old, but I don't remember, in my lifetime hearing that from one person to another person within, arm's reach, on a book, on TV, a movie, etc. But I've never heard anybody in real life that it's just.
I heard it. I heard it once, but it was from the English teacher at my school.
But I've heard a lot of times, much to his chagrin. You're like, oh, okay.
Yeah, but it's a pet peeve of mine. Save the $20 words for the non beer swilling freaking t-shirt wearing guys like myself who.
But I mean, this is the writing is no different than R.H. Howard or anything else. I forgot what the word sword meant, and then I looked up and I was reading. For the first book, oh, it's in there. Of course, I've encountered it, but I don't remember ever encountering it. But I did when I.
That's another one. Yeah, it's
sword.
It's a stretch of grass.
Yeah, it has to do with grassland. But all I can think is, how far have we fallen when this is stuff I used to read as a 10-year-old or 11-year-old, and now I look at stuff like Harry Potter, which is written at a whole other grade level below that. Or that, I mean,
certainly.
Written more at an elementary level than it is at. This is to me, and this is not nearly as high as when you start reading some of the other crap that's out there.
But see, for me, I'm more about what's happening than how it's described. If you think 100 years ago plus when this was written, this was like, he was taking all of his brain to come up with this crazy scenario, if you will, compared to the choice of words. For me, I'd be in the same boat if I was suddenly, overcome with the desire to write this story about these fantastical events that were beyond anything that had ever been written at the time, as far as I can tell, when it comes to, like flying vehicles and alien creatures and different cultures and being on freaking Mars, compared to the usual fantasy and fiction of the day. I'm certain there's probably some science fiction-y stuff, but these were some concepts that went on to inspire like almost anything you can think.
Yeah,
Star Trek, Star Wars.
But I mean, let's be honest. If you're gonna look at like the level of writing, Jack Vance is generally the top for having to have a dictionary next to you, and then you get Robert E. Howard and John Carter, and then you get
Lovecraft and
Lovecraft is up there. It's a little bit up there too.
Lord Dunsany and things like that.
But what's the next one? Then you get Elric, which is below, and then finally like Harry Potter near the bottom. And I'm not. I mean, I flew through Harry Potter like it is nothing. It was like, oh, I got through 100 pages in 40 minutes. Whereas I still remember reading these books as a kid. I used to be able to do 60 pages an hour approximately, so I get one book in 3 hours. And now I'm lucky if I can get through 10 pages before I get tired and want to go to bed.
I'm having some difficulty with a book like that because normally less than 2 years ago, I'd read a paperback book a day, and now I'm struggling to get through 20, 30 pages. And one book I've been reading for over 2 weeks, and I'm on page 40. It's just so. Anyways, was there any other scene for me? The whole trope of not giving up John Carter's son's identity when we all like, come on, dude.
That's what I was thinking too. It hits you in the face right away that's who it is when he says, "Oh, he looks familiar and he's lighter than normal," and then it's like they play it out for what seems like 2 of the short stories that they don't know who he is.
It takes forever to get through that of who is
the impeccable timing of cutting off the boy as he's about to say, "Oh yeah, John Carter's my dad." Like that wouldn't be the first freaking
several times.
Any 10-year-old kid would be like, "Yeah, John Carter's my dad. Yep." You know what I mean?
And
Just
then
like,
on top of that, his mother would have described him to described his father to
described, and
him
there'd be
in
busts,
such detail.
There would be statues and
Well,
paintings and
Yeah,
busts of him
that too.
everywhere you went.
He would have recognized his own father right off the bat. There wouldn't have been no.
Justin
Oh, you
Gamer
are
has
John
never
Carter.
dealt with a bitter woman then.
But she wasn't. They had annual parades celebrating him saving the world.
Yeah, I mean, speaking of saving the world, okay, that was something that bugged the shit out of me. Okay, the first book ended, with John Carter basically, passing out, right? Then he wakes up, book two, back in Virginia, and we go through all that stuff. And then when he gets back, we still don't really know what happened to in a certain, from like the time he fainted. Did he faint and like, Star Trekian, like discombobulate and then teleport to Earth?
His
Like at that
body
very
disappeared. They
second,
couldn't find his body. So
right? But I'm like, I wanted that scene. You know what I mean? Of him like fading out or some sort of.
But that adds nothing really to it because you left wondering. So
just-
then it allows you to fill in the details. You
Yeah.
fill in the details without him having to explicitly spell it out for you.
it also gets to what I was trying to tell you with your short story. You're starting too soon, right? Like you're talking about starting before the reader has any interest in the story. So why are you gonna you're gonna read three, 4 pages of nothing happening? You're gonna close the book, put it away, and walk away. That's what happens when you start too soon.
Well, and I had a friend of mine.
Welcome to the show, George and Doc. Long time no see. I'm working on it, Justin, but I appreciate that. For me, I was just thinking of it as your typical police story. When something like that happens, that's kind of how it just comes across. Is like you don't know these people, but you're putting the details together as they're witnessing or participating in the crime.
Mm-hmm. And remember, we're not like they used to have, during this time period, where they're literally trying to get you to buy next week's magazine, things like that. Which is, where we to be fair, we've benefited from being 60 years. Well, I think I read in the early '80s, so I'd be 70 years later. It's like it's like under like anyone that read Return of the King, well, not Return of the King, but The Lord of the Rings. He didn't want it broken up into 3 books, and when they put in Return of the King, it's the last book. He was mad. He said, "You're giving away the secret." I was like, "Oh, really? Is that what it's supposed to be?" So, yeah, I mean, we can't look at it with our modern eyes. You have to look at when it was
right, because we're kind of spoiled with binge watching. You don't have to wait. I've talked a lot about how when we were watching things like Star Trek Next Generation and Babylon 5, we had to wait that week in between episodes. And on a cliffhanger episode, you might even have to wait, till the season picked up next year. And that was just like, it give you something to talk about.
When they made TV before streaming, they would have those cliffhanger moments at the end of every episode. Maybe towards the commercial breaks, there would be smaller ones. But if you look at the analytics for new streaming shows, they make them put those little cliffhanger moments, those little anchor points every 5 minutes per episode.
Well, I'm thinking that it's not. I don't know about the other part is, of course, they put a cliffhanger at the end of every scene. You're like, what happens next? Like, tune in next. Can
you imagine
my favorite is. Do we remember when JR was shot? Which I know you don't, Justin, but remember when JR Dallas was shot?
I remember it being something that was talked about around the water cooler.
The worst trope you can ever put in writing. This is you will anger more readers or watchers of your program by doing that trope. Never have a fucking climax moment be a dream sequence.
Oh well, that's
I've literally. I'm trying to remember what it was.
That was when Bobby got shot in Dallas, and they woke up in the shower, and that's because it was so negative for that whole season that they had to retcon it.
But there are other incidences of that Yeah, and then just retconning things. There are other ways to go over it than
The only thing I think that I hate more
like
than that
they make fun of it
is,
on The Simpsons, for fuck's sakes.
and the only thing I hate more than that is an entire episode that is a dream sequence of the previous seasons. Star
Oh
Trek did that, where the
no,
whole
no, they all
episode.
did that. They all did
Now,
that when the
now,
writers had nothing better to do. And I
in the
always remember
case,
the recap show. Oh,
in the case of the episode where Riker's going through his entire
Life.
life while he's in sickbay, that was because they were in the middle of a writer's strike, and the studio forced them to make another episode without the ability to write one.
Still
Uh,
doesn't justify it. I still hate it.
yeah.
It just
Justin, they did that with sitcoms all the time.
Yes, they did, but
yeah.
I'm specifically referencing the example Shadow gave.
it's funny that's the one that was in my head at the moment.
Yeah.
I hate that shit. I'm not a big fan of the movie Groundhog Day because it's just like
Groundhog Day is different though.
I know it is, and I have seen it a couple of times, but it's just like it grabs my anxiety dial. It just fucking cranks it up for some reason. It's one of those pet peeves, if you will.
To be fair, I did enjoy On the Edge of Tomorrow, which is exactly Groundhog's Day with aliens and combat, which I really did enjoy.
Agreed, George. And that lasts until they graduate from college, I think.
Yeah.
And started with talking about. Whoop, sorry, I can't read that now.
It says I Dream of Jeannie.
Oh, I watched that show, but just with passing interest.
I watched.
Wait a minute. To be fair, and I never saw the end of the Bob Newhart show. When they went with Daryl. This is Larry, Daryl,
and Daryl.
Yeah, but at the very end, Bob Newhart wakes up in his previous series and said, "I just had the weirdest dream," and that's how that entire series finale ends.
Wasn't that the one where he was the therapist?
Yes.
Yeah, but that was meant as humorous, and it was but everyone got the joke.
Yeah, that I could see that being tolerable, just because that show was so dry, and I was, to be honest, my dad loved the show, and I'm like, what is it about this show that is even remotely interesting? And of course, I found out later that as I grew up, it's just one of those things. You either get it or you don't. It's a grown-up thing, and
the comedy's in the subtext.
Yeah, and the neuroticism of some of his patients and things like that. It was it's just not a thing you should be sitting around watching when you're a teenager in the 80s.
Yeah, but I meant
what meant for you?
But the Bob Newhart show was the one where he was in Vermont, when he was the Vermont. What was that, like hotel owner?
Yeah, like a bed and breakfast kind of thing,
and
which I swear to God was the same set for the from I Love Lucy, the color version. I can swear it's the same set.
Probably was.
It probably was. They used all these sets anyway.
Yeah, they just like retool them, move some shit around.
Yeah, it was. I think I forgot which. I think I might have started with Star Wars, but up to a certain point, nothing was thrown away in Hollywood ever. You would find the same exact prop used across countless movies, TV shows, series. Sets,
no. They still do that. Stuff away or sold it. I mean, yeah, if they can use it, they will in the next one. But if they can't, then they sell it off or they trash it. Which is why,
but they trash a lot more than they used to. It used to be everything was held on to. Period.
Yeah.
Well, it would be repainted or taken apart and used for other things.
Because it was cheaper back then and they cared about such things, to stay under budget, etc. Then came an era where the more
warehouse space became more.
Well, not just that, but it seemed to me like the more they spent on a movie, the more valid it became, even if it was tripe.
Mm-hmm.
You know, kind of like, we've got this much money in the budget, we better spend every penny, and if we can like squeeze more out of the production company, let's try. You know,
Yeah,
which is just
Yeah.
dumb.
that happens.
It's like government spending, but for civilians.
All right. Well. Let's make sure that we get back onto like the actual book instead of
Yeah,
everything.
yeah. I was
except the
thinking
book.
the same thing there, Owen. So, nothing else that you guys just, got your hackles up, so to speak.
Well, the only thing is the evident serialization would leave like lazy mysteries like the son's name and
Mm-hmm.
like we could have spent more time, like if it was a written story we could have spent more time with the slave revolt and escape, right? Like that's
Mm-hmm.
rushed through because it's just one story. And
I
the god queen or whatever her name being an old
It's just,
crone
and
is
stuff like that. Yeah.
like that could have been built up better, but it's like a 30-page story stuck in the
but
middle of
see,
the
I don't
book.
need all that stuff built up. I like it's the fact because it's fast paced. It's part of the reason I
Yeah.
enjoy it.
Yeah,
That's
but there's fast paced and then there's like rushed through because it's just a collection of short stories.
Yeah, but it never bothered me for that. So
Yeah, but like, it bothered me. So
that was part of the question. If there was something that bothered one person, doesn't mean it's going to bother us all. It's cool that we can't agree on some of the things that were obviously annoying as hell. The catharsis, which I thought was I was thinking at first, it's like, God, that's kind of a dorky name, but at the same time I'm like, you know what, I get it. I could see how that would be.
yeah.
It was kind of cute. Uh, and I love the character of John's kid. He's like between 10 and 12 years old throughout the story, and he's putting Robin to shame. You know what I mean? Leading men and doing all this cool shit at 10 years old.
Well,
You know what I mean?
Robin was there for different reasons.
I, you know what I mean. But when you think of a young kid sidekick, that's
Mhm.
the easiest trope or stereotype to jump to. He was kind of a cool little kid, brave and smart and knew all this shit that puts most adults to shame today. Being able to find his way out of a freaking pitch black series of tunnels. Shit,
you
most
mean,
kids.
changing a tire?
What?
I mean, like the ability to change a tire, or
Yeah.
change your
If
own
they had,
oil.
right. I was just like, man, this kid is badass. When he finally takes the throne, oh my god. Unfortunately, there's going to be nothing left to fight or do because his old man will have done it all. But still, kind of a badass. Glad Cantos Can got to do some stuff and be the you know
Mhm.
one of the cool
Well,
one of the cool kids.
I wouldn't call it necessarily a dislike, just a little bit of a complaint. The fact that the kid exists and it's not explained one way or the other about Carter, because the writer has all this information about Mars, all the scientific information, but he never takes into consideration two separate species cannot have a child, which means either he is being very continuity ignorative on that bit, or where it's kind of suggested in the first one, John Carter isn't actually of Earth.
I'm with you on the second one there, TCG. I seriously suspect that he's either not from Earth or he's just so freaking, he's the Highlander, something so crazy.
I think it's that the people of Mars were transplanted from Earth by the
Ancients or some shit.
the people who built the ability to go back and forth.
I look at it this way, which is it's fucking irrelevant. If you want to magically do it, just like
it's not like that irrelevant for how much scientific the writer brings into in with the character. Like the character is almost a super genius for his time.
Yeah, you know what? I kind of chalked it up to one of two things: either just because otherwise you wouldn't get this love story, or two, that was one of his failings in his research or his thought process was that, oh yeah, you got these creatures that lay eggs and you got these creatures that are born
Well,
mammalian.
I was right about the tree thing, right? I just remembered it. The black men of the moon, right?
Mhm.
The
Well,
the
well
tree
the
thing, the
uh,
white apes, and was it the green men? Were all born from the tree originally,
mhm.
and their pod split into four, and like the tree thing was the only one that was still stuck, and it freed itself later when the tree died. But
Yeah,
that's
just
where all
before
the
the tree
people
died,
came
according.
from.
Uh-huh.
So yeah, I just figured that they had enough technology that they could do whatever they want. So that's
Yeah,
what
I didn't know. I didn't really think of it as a technological issue. I mean, you can't cross, a cat with a chicken. You know,
Yet,
right, right. I mean, naturally, you
right.
can't put them in. You can't put them in a room and throw on some,
yet,
some James Brown and think they're going to get it on. You know what I mean? You're going to come back. You're going to have a fat cat and a pile of chicken bones.
oh, feathers too. Um, man, I want someone to hurry up and do that thing with the wings.
Okay,
We don't
just
have enough chicken wings in our world.
um, if you say so. I'm not a fan of chicken wings, but I'm pretty sure
You are a heretic, sir. You were going to
Oh,
hell for that.
chicken wings are for poor people. No, I'm just.
Oh, um,
That
my,
doesn't
my,
make them bad.
don't make them bad. That's true.
Well, you know what is? I like things that
Lasagna was
actually have meat.
originally a dish for slaves.
Hmm.
You still
I
fucking
am a
eat
slave
that.
to mozzarella cheese, and
Yeah.
so that's fair. Justin, I would recommend you invest in like a deep freezer and just stock up, on chicken wings, and then you're good. You
No,
know,
I want the ability to like slaughter a chicken and have a whole pound of wings come off the fucking thing, and then
um,
have some chicken breast and thighs and whatever I'm doing with the rest of the chicken.
So what he wants is he wants an ostrich.
he wants a cross between a
I've
chicken.
had
And,
ostrich.
he
It's not
wants a
I have
bad.
cross
too.
between a chicken and a centipede, a creature
I,
that's got 100 wings, 50 on a side, but only two breasts and two thighs and
Yeah.
one neck.
Well, maybe not 50. That's a little much, but like 10, 10 on 10 on a side or 10 total.
well, here's the problem: is Justin's just not going to
The
all you can
stretch
eat wing.
limousine of chicken.
See,
All
see, I
your
knew
wing
you were a
plates.
John Carter fan because you like those extra limbs. So, did you guys have a favorite part?
Uh,
Hmm.
there wasn't enough hot chicks in it, so
The beginning.
You got to
I,
admit
I
there were
like I
more
like the
this
very
time.
beginning when he finds Charles Tarkus.
Taurus
When he tries
Tarkus.
to figure
Yeah,
out
yeah.
what's going on, and he's fighting with his friend for
Mhm.
the very front image when you see it when he's come out there and he's trying to understand what's going on, and they're all like, "Oh, well, if you go down here, you don't. This is like your reincarnation area," and they're like, "Oh no, it's not. This is where they feed you,
To
and they
something
implant
else.
everything." And then I like the fact that they were fighting the plant men and the white apes and everything else. It was, oh yeah, that's my favorite part because that's where he wakes up and that's where the story starts, and we're right into it.
That was a good part. I will
Yeah.
admit that was a good part. And the Michael Whalen image that you showed us
Yeah.
on Discord is
I have to check that out. Where is that?
I'd have to
it's
say my
right
favorite.
before the link to the audiobook.
Yeah. So
It's a really really classic image of that exact scene. How about you, TCG?
I'd have to say my favorite part is a toss up between what Omenal just described and the scene where John Carter lures basically the white people and the black people to fight each other.
Okay, Justin,
What was the question again?
favorite part.
My favorite part. Um, it's kind of hard to tell. I should start taking notes. Um, I don't know. I really don't think I had one.
Okay. For me, it was the scene where John and Thuvia and I forget who else, the black guy, they're being chased by the Warhoons, and Thuvia tries to jump off the horse and you know and like sacrifice herself, but after that, the rescue from the Red Martians when those ships come down and just start blasting the Warhoons, because I was like, oh my god, not another freaking capture scene, where everybody gets taken prisoner. You know what I mean? Because there's a
Yeah.
lot of that, and I want to get into that in a minute because I've been thinking
Well, that's
about
the end of every other story, right?
kind of, but the way he wrote that scene, I was really digging it. I was like picturing, the whole thing, and then suddenly out of nowhere, kaboom, kaboom, in come the freaking artillery. I'm like, yes, the cavalry, and then who comes down? But Cantos Can, one of my favorite characters. Hey buddy, what's up? Glad you're still kicking. It was like, okay, this I
Yeah.
can get behind. And then of course he twisted into the whole religious thing, where you're not allowed to come back from the dead lands,
Yeah.
which we will talk about. But I wanted to talk about that's the thing with Burroughs. I've read a lot of his stuff, and I really like it, even though I know it's annoying. But I like the idea of the whole being taken prisoner. Now, Burroughs freaking does that like every chance he gets, but
A
if
little
you think about
obsessively.
it drives up the tension, until the point you're like, not again. But in some of his other stories where it doesn't happen, you know, every book, actually there's one book he wrote where I think it happened like 4 freaking times in 150 some odd pages. I'm just like, you're shitting me. Yeah. The Carson Napier of Venus books, which are really good, but they're like his version of Cull, if you will. They're good and they're very different. But most people prefer the Conan, that being John Carter, more. And I'm pretty sure he wrote them after, but it's got that feeling of like okay, this is like Cull, but you know, I really like in gaming the idea of being able to take the players prisoner, throwing them into a situation instead of just freaking, okay, total party kill. You're surrounded by orcs. Okay, well, you're dead. No.
To be fair, that's the DM issue. Is because when you knock them down to 0 hit points, you can always have them be knocked unconscious, and then when they
No,
wake
but
up, they're all
the problem being is that the player's attitude. I mean, I've talked about this before. The players would literally rather die than get taken capture, and it's
Yep.
never because of the honor or the disgrace or whatever. It's like, you're taking away my stuff. Fuck it, just kill me. Like,
You know what?
Yep.
Is I found
That's
I
petty bitch.
yeah,
I think the
trust
problem
me.
that I had with it is the players will never willingly surrender, which is different than them being knocked out and captured. I don't
But
have problems with
the reason the player mentality, and I've encountered this 100 times if I've encountered it once, was just kill us. We don't want our stuff
Well,
taken away.
that's what happens when you have like the large power range and it dependent so much on the equipment you're carrying, and equipment being a pain in the ass to get.
Well, I'm going to bring up one
Um,
other thing, which is also comes down to the fact that DMs tend not to destroy magic equipment. Because if you actually look at the first edition DMG, look at the saving throws for your equipment. Your equipment was intended to get destroyed, so when you look at the mod,
Some of it yes, some of it no.
no. All the equipment is intended to be destroyed at some point. Which, if you look at it, that's why some of the high level characters don't have in the modules. When you look in the back, whether it's S1 or G1, G2, G3, they don't have a lot of magic equipment because the intention was some of that would get destroyed over time, so you don't. So it kind of has that turnover, and that's actually something that Gygax mentions in his in the DMG is about being careful about giving too many magic items because they become more attached to magic items than they do to the character.
Mm-hmm. And especially when you've got like the fighter with his sword kind of thing mentality, or things like that. It's like, it's all going to get thrown in a room, and you just got to go find the room. after you break out of jail. It's been done 100 times in video games. Your stuff's over there. You just got to find it because they haven't divvied it up yet, or maybe you've got to do the more realistic thing, and it's been divvied up, and now you got to find those specific things. You're not going to get it all back, but what really matters to your character.
Well,
Your paladin, it's the holy sword. Everything else can piss off for all they care. They get their holy sword back, they're good to go.
And the other part is, though, is a lot of times, when you're looking at, I know we're divesting, but when you look at the magic items, a lot of that would just be stored in the warehouse of the king. He's not giving that out. He's not giving all that crap out. He's, that's the problem, though.
Well, if they're bandits or whatever that you're capturing.
Well, yeah, but if they're bandits, a lot of times they can't even use a lot of the equipment either. So it's dependent on it. And
but how do you get the how do you get that cool prison or escape scenario? You can't just you could do the Oblivion or Elder Scrolls thing where you start them out in jail and then you're like, okay, I can never do this again. Thanks.
No. Wait. What you do is you tell them in certain cases is it's just, you have to GM depending on how it's going on. Is when you hit 0 hit points, if they're intelligent monsters, they're probably going to capture you first before they eat you. And so whenever you get when you hit 0 hit points for orcs, unless you're an elf, you're going to probably be put into a cage or something.
Think of for example, in The Hobbit, when Bilbo frees all his buddies, either from the spiders.
Which time? They're captured twice.
I know exactly. I was going to say the spiders, the trolls, or the elves. 3 times in one freaking book, but it allows you.
By elves?
The wood elves.
By the elves. Yeah, the wood elves put them in with the barrels. Remember, that's how he gets them out of there.
Oh yeah, the Hobbit. Lord of the Rings.
But that's my whole point, though. Is guess what? You hit 0 hit points. Now you're going to have to go in front of them, and then you say, look, if you don't do this, you can end up dead. And then if you read the orcs in the first edition of Dungeon Master's Guide, it says that they automatically kill elves. So at that point, it's like, look, for an elf, fighting orcs are death sentences, but for humans, they might be enslaved and stuff like this. And so it's like, okay, 0 hit points means that your humans will survive, but not your elf. And then they're like, oh, maybe I don't want to play an elf as often because they always die whenever I get captured.
Yeah, in my experience, players will either do what Shadow said and bitch and whine and basically say you should have killed my character, or one of my personal favorites, we're going to raise the city to the ground. You went to jail for something you did.
Captured?
Well, they escape and they just go.
Well, but you know what? I'm okay.
I also, Omen, you also have to realize I had power gamers that knew how to play the system.
I was the power gamer.
So when they say raise the city to the ground,
is the power
they
gamer.
literally flip the city up.
He's also the book.
I mean, I am.
I'm sticking with that one. I don't believe there's actual print copies of D&D. It's just Omen now. He shows up at people's houses and tells them how to play the game.
I just I've broken up pieces of myself, and they're all a little bit different. No, but no, it's just because see that's a DM thing too. Well, guess what? If you're high enough level, good. Flip the city upside down. But when you're second and third level, when you're most likely to be caught and captured.
Yeah, and then you've got the entire party has just become evil, and now every paladin on the planet is hunting them down. Oh, so let me play that. Let me DM that party. Oh yeah.
And then it's all your fault for sending the paladins and other holy people after them. We were put in jail wrongfully, so we were just getting our revenge.
There's no such thing as revenge. You know what I mean?
Revenge.
And the paladins are just getting their revenge.
Well, that's not revenge. That's freaking pitching a bitch. I think we call it technically.
Yeah. Well, when you're 7th or 8th level, I'm okay with you overthrowing it. But I'm sorry, when you're 2nd and 3rd level and 4th level, which is when you're usually going to get captured anyway, it's like
you should. I mean, I know it's tropey and whatnot, but it's worked for most of the history of literature for a reason, because we can all commiserate with the heroes when it's happening to them, and then we get something to cheer about when they get out. It's like you've done something using your wits instead of your power. You've thought your way out. You snuck. You've been stealthy. You've been graceful and careful and cunning, and you you bested the situation where lesser people would have gotten caught and thrown back in jail and probably had horrific things done to them for escaping.
Well, I'm going to mention the other part, which is if we're going to talk about classic, even for D&D, go look at A4, um, Escape from the Slavers, where they wake up naked underground while there's a volcano going on and they have to get out of there before everything collapses. It's great stories. I think part of the problem, though, to be fair on this, is that we weren't dealing with very mature players, and we're dealing with killer DMs in many cases. In a lot of power games, well, I mean, a lot of it is in there, and you go, okay, but in a lot of cases, it's like, are you worth the effort for certain things? It's like, oh, okay, because how often was speaking of being captured, what do we have with Star Wars and Return of the Jedi? And they were captured in the first one, and then then in the second they were captured, and then in the third, so there's nothing wrong with it as long as the players feel like they have an opportunity that it's just not instant death. But I remember playing as a kid is if we talk about TPK all too often, and I think this is the problem with the Dungeon Masters guide, is it doesn't encourage the Dungeon Master just to capture them. I mean, Conan was captured how many times?
Oh my God! I was getting to that. He's like number 2 in the list of people who've been captured and escaped more often than anybody else. I often would refer. It's like, oh, okay, so I thought you guys wanted to be like badasses like Conan, but the first time someone tries to throw you in jail, you just give up. You can't beat the situation. You can't best these guys. Through skill and cunning. You're just like without your toys, you're nobody. Is that what you're telling me?
Wait a minute. Well, let's see. If you look at the one where he has to fight Thark, was it Thark? Anyway, I can't remember, but it was the red ape. The giant with the red coat. He had that one. That's how the story starts. Hey, guess what? I want you to kill this man off. I will let the person get you out of jail. They had that one. There's a bunch of the Conan ones where it just goes over and over, and he gets captured all the time. Even the what is it? The Queen of the Black Coast. How does it start? He's in front of the judge.
Good one, George. I haven't thought of that one. That one's a really good one. But before that, George, you said you could have them roll to escape or be captured.
No.
Well, one.
No. You start as captured. You start as, guess what? You get knocked out. You have 0 hit points. You're recovering. And now you have to figure out how to escape. I'm not letting you just roll to see if you just get out of that. Otherwise,
I mean, because that requires them to run, and that's also something that the fine art of running away has completely left the vernacular of the gaming community. Nobody runs away, or at least maybe obviously there are people out there that will play like that, but a huge group of people I've come across, running away is just not. It's never going to happen.
You know why?
Because they assume they can beat everything they come across.
Yeah, but if you lose several characters, like when we play the OSE games, and we've lost enough characters, we're like, run away. Don't get me wrong, you've had some desperate fights in there because you get trapped. But man, it's been a lot of when you lose like your 4 or 5 characters, you're beginning like, well, maybe running away is the decision to make. So, while we talk about being captured, I hate saying that in certain cases, if you're getting, munched by beetles, they're not going to let you live. So, it's time to run away. I think that's part of it.
Yeah, well, I mean, especially superior numbers, when you see them, and they don't see you yet, that's a clue. That's the biggest clue you're going to get that, hey, this isn't one of those situations where you can duel and take them on one, and the odds are in your favor. It's like, no, the DM's letting you know there's 8,000 fire beetles and there's 6 of you.
Well, let's
I want to get the hell out of Dodge.
What was the experience points? Was it for fighting or for gold? And fighting didn't give you that many experience points. You were much better off trying to avoid and steal stuff than you were trying to do the major combat.
Mm-hmm.
If I fought 100 orcs, that might be worth 1,300 experience points.
Or if maybe about 2,000, depending on the hit points. But yeah.
Well, but I mean is just that they're only worth like 10 to 15 experience points per orc you kill. So at that point, you're better off. But if you find that they have a treasure, if you can steal the treasure and get out, no combat necessary, and you get a lot more experience for that.
So this kind of covers the topic of, or usual question of what would you borrow from this story? Are there any other things that you guys would take away from this and add to a role playing situation?
Well, if you can get everyone invested, is you make sure the love interest is locked behind the closed door, and then say next campaign is you trying to get her back.
Yeah.
Next
Maybe.
season on
Go ahead, guys.
I was about to say, you forget, Omen. Most players are much like Justin. Oh, she got locked in a tower I can never get to? All right, where's the next one?
No, I'd want her back.
Good for you, Justin. Good for you.
But I'd bring the next one with me because
I know. I mean, I was thinking, the perverted side of me is like, well, we're locked in here for a year together.
No, he wasn't locked in
the tower. Stays in the tower. Just saying,
Well, he wasn't locked in there. It was her.
I know. That's what I was thinking, though.
But let's not forget what was his choice.
Don't forget, Shadow is a porn producer.
Well, let's see. Who does he get? He can get, especially because I'm getting some of them confused for the last one as well. How many women were involved? He had Thuvia, he had Deja, and then he had Vader, whatever the
daughter of Tai Shang.
Yeah. So he had 3 women right there, all willing, and then of course that comes up to later on. So it's.
Yeah, so he could
have been a complete horn dog.
And none of them were freaky green chicks with 4 arms, right?
Nope.
Yeah. So I mean, come on, you gotta go with the.
Well, it's a good thing because with those tusks, certain shit is not going to happen.
If you, let's be honest,
there ain't no way you're getting a PJ from a woman with tusks.
If you were Captain Kirk, you would go
Captain
for the
Kirk
green form girl. Yes.
You have to come in from the side or something. I don't know. I'm terrible. I know. But
that's what bothers me more is all the women fall in love with him and like, oh.
Well, I mean, he's got that whole new kid in town, vibe going for him. They've never seen a guy like him, and they already know that he can do things nobody else can do. So the imagination's going to wander. You can't really blame him for that. But that's one thing I did enjoy about his writing was that he wasn't afraid to throw like romance and flirting and things like that in the story, and yet the hero maintains his commitment, so to speak, and isn't a full on dog like the 4 of us would be. But it doesn't seem weird when you're reading about it. But you can't.
Ethics and morals are such a hard thing.
Well, I mean, even Conan at one point where he was talking to one of the ladies, he says, "I have never forced myself on any woman." When he was talking about that, which was, but that was the time where you wanted the chivalry out there, along with the rogue. You wanted both.
Right nowadays, you'd be getting hate letters because he wasn't
rapey enough,
or why aren't there other kinds of characters? Never mind. Just cut that right off before we go there. But he did it. He was able to write it, in a charming way that you just don't see anymore. Anywhere on a screen anymore.
Now, if you want to write some of those other characters, you will make a lot of money in the erotic business.
Hey, don't make me read gore or whatever that is. I'm like, oh.
I've got 6 of them on my stairway waiting to be read. Omen, I'll give you a full breakdown if you're curious.
Of the first quarter of the series.
Well, I heard the first ones were actually pretty good, and then he just went down the.
Well, I assume after the 10,000th fan letter asking for more of this or that, he probably
Well, he wrote this series literally to thumb his nose at feminists.
I think he and I think this is the beginning of a beautiful friendship.
Yeah.
John Norman, where are you now?
Dead.
Yeah, I know.
He died.
When you, I know
probably poisoned by a woman. Just saying.
But no,
that's how most men go. Didn't you know we're immortal unless that happens?
Well, I mean, but those are part of the. If you look at the stuff, and this applies to all of the old things, they did do their romance, and you're like, okay, you've defeated the big bad guy, you win the princess, which of course this is so classic of, hey, you get literally the princess, and it's like, but it inspired us all as kids. Oh, I want to be that. That's what when I play, a lot of role playing games. Oh, I want to move up in the social rank. I'm at the bottom, but I have the ability to move upwards over time, and then I can get the princess. And that's even true when you start reading other, even other literature in there. It's like, oh, the poor farm boy makes it up.
Princess Bride. The Princess Bride. He starts out as a poor farm boy, and he goes off to do some do some adventuring to make a name for himself, and
Now he did do some raping and looting.
I wouldn't be surprised, but I don't remember that in the book. But I get where you're going with that.
He was doing the pirate life.
Yeah. What happens on the Jolly Roger stays on the Jolly Roger. Oh, wait a minute. Those are different kind of pirates.
You would know.
Well, they like their booty.
How many installments of Shadow Presents the Jolly Roger are you up to?
I can neither confirm nor deny.
97.
I don't know how many Pirates of the Caribbean movies can Disney make, and then he can draft up those.
They made one that I know of.
I think there are 5 or 6 of them.
No, aren't there 7 or 8 or something? It's something like good grief.
No.
It's
there are 3 or 4 with Johnny Depp, and then there's the replacement guy. I didn't like any of them past the first one though.
That's what I was doing. I didn't even like the first one, to be honest.
I love the first one. I saw it 3 times.
I thought the first one was so much fun. I really did enjoy it, but the problem that I have with it is if it does well, instead of getting a good script, they just want to pop out another one regardless, and that's one of the reasons I like.
It did the same thing we complain about in most D&D games. It had power creep. It just became too much.
Yeah, by the third one, it's like Johnny Depp's literally taking on gods.
Yeah.
I heard somewhere that he wasn't even supposed to be mortal or some shit like that to begin with. I'm like,
Johnny Depp? I mean, the
Jack
character.
Yeah.
Sparrow. No, he's trying to become immortal. That's his whole goal. Become immortal so he can sail the seas forever.
Well, I also I wasn't sure if it was that or it was he was already dead or something.
No, he's trying to steal. In the first one, there's the undead crew.
The Black Pearl,
which he takes one of the undead coins from.
Well, but
he's trying to seize that ship and become the captain of it, so he'll be around forever.
Wasn't
that's his B plot for the series?
I thought that was his personal ship, and he was kicked off, and that's why he wanted it back so much.
Well, it is. It sort of is. The storyline goes like this: Jack Sparrow hunts down the Black Pearl. You find out in the next movie that is because he made a deal with Davy Jones to raise it from the depths to be captain of it for 10 years. Problem is, he was a poor captain that was kicked off within the first year. he figured he could weasel his way out of that agreement. Johnny Depp.
Jack Sparrow.
Jack Sparrow, not Jack Sparrow.
I know who you're talking about.
Barbosa.
Anyway, yeah,
Davy
but
Jones.
the problem is, like most things is, well, I got to bring back this really great villain because he did so well, and so saying it's time to make a new great villain for us all to hate, and that's the. You know, again, whenever we're doing campaigns or anything,
well,
you need to have an arc in it being done instead of keep on
technically Barbosa never came back as an nemesis, just as a pain in the ass.
It doesn't matter. The whole
doesn't
point
matter.
is
It's like the Batman movies.
Yeah,
it's like the Batman movies, right? You have the first Batman movie, you got the one villain, and then the second Batman, you got 3 villains. Maybe 4, depends on how you look at one of them. And then you have at least 2 to 3 every movie after that. It's like, no, just give me one fucking story. You know?
Well, wait, which movies are you talking about? Because
all of them. Like literally all of them. All since
I'm thinking
first
that Christopher
Keaton.
Nolan is you had one major villain and then maybe a couple of ancillary ones that were really minor characters that were almost like henchmen. And to me that's fine. And but the point being is that when one's gone, you replace him with another arch nemesis.
Yeah, so you've got to. If you're going to bring back a bad guy, you've got to bring him back when it's least expected. You've run him through maybe half a dozen, new bad guys. You know what I mean? That way, when they think they're on to a new bad guy, and it turns out to be this other bad guy from a couple of bad guys back, it's like, oh, he's been doing all this crazy shit. No wonder we didn't get this clue or that clue. That makes it more interesting. It also makes it seem like you've been keeping track of the bad guy, Moriarty style. He's behind the scenes. He's like, okay, you beat me this time, but next time I'm gonna be ready. You know what I mean?
But my whole point is very similar to what happened to Sherlock Holmes. At the end, he basically throws Moriarty off the edge, and then you get Hound of the Baskervilles, which doesn't have Moriarty in it. The point being is that at a certain point is you need to let your villains die. And I think that's the problem is instead of them having a new one, it's like, oh, well, we got to bring back the old one because we can't come up with a new one. It's like, no, let some of those old villains die and then bring back new challenges. That's one of the reasons I
because that in itself, by letting, hey, Grandma, you want to come in? We're talking Gods of Mars. I'm sure you figured that out because you read the title, but the link is in
Did you ever fix the spelling?
Pardon?
Did you ever fix the spelling
of
Mars?
How did I screw that up?
Yeah, it was like the first comment in chat.
Oh, okay, I didn't see that. Having
and then the second comment was me making fun of it when it was pointed out.
I didn't see any of that. That's weird. Having a major villain die actually can spawn a whole host of new villains. You've got the number one henchman wanting revenge on his old boss. You got the henchman's girlfriend wanting revenge. You've got the villain's children wanting revenge. You've got all kinds of different routes you could go.
I also want to mention this is you have the hierarchy villains, like in this one. You start off with the White Martians. Well, they're not they're one level below ISIS, who's the next level of villain. Yeah. ISIS or ISIS. It doesn't. Which I mean. Yeah, it doesn't mean anyway. ISIS. Anyway,
just like.
Well, you can say it however you want, but anyway, the whole point being is that you now have that next layer in there. As he's peeling off the onions. Okay, I killed this one. Oh, there was a villain behind that person, and you go further and further down until you get to the, and of course, by the end of the third book, you feel like final relief that he's finally become, everything that he was supposed to be at the end, and I think that's part of it. It's like, oh, and then you have minor villains on the side. Then you have the backstabbing. Well, this villain was helping out at one point, but then he turns and helps out the hero because he wants to get to that next rung.
I actually like the way villains are laid out in a series. The Sword of Truth does it the best, I think. If you've ever read that series.
No,
I recommend it.
But again, if you look at this one, every time there's another layer. Oh, we found this out. Oh, we found this out. what does he mention? Is in the first book or the second book? Where they're talking about, well, we don't know where the water's coming from. Remember that?
Yeah.
Where's the water coming from? And then I guess I can't remember if it's the third book. You find out where the water's coming from the very center of the planet, where they have the black Martians. That there's so much else out there that it's like, oh, and good story.
I think they mentioned that in this book, didn't they?
I can't remember. The problem is I'm blurring the two, because it's a trilogy, in my opinion, for these books. But he lays it out in the first book, and then he explains it later. All too often nowadays is everyone wants to just explain everything up front instead of giving you room to breathe and wonder, what does this have to do?
Explaining everything up front is bad writing.
Yeah,
literally, your editor will tell you that if you hire one.
Right, but that's one of the things that keeps people re-engaged. Oh, let me see. Oh, I remember that 2 books back. Now that explains
you've got to seed things. You got to foreshadow things, right?
Yes.
That's why people still let M. Night Shyamalan make movies, because he does that well. He foreshadows things. Right? Instead of saying something outright, you need to have echoes of it present through the earlier chapters.
Well,
but because these are serials, you don't get that as much.
Well, but then the other thing that you also get is, and they do this well on whether they did on Lost or several others. You have these characters, but you don't know their backstory, and they just slowly dribble it out. And then by the time that the series is the series, you know everything in there, and you go, okay, I'm done with it. It's usually a couple seasons before it ends. But they did the same thing with what was that? The equivalent Disney version of that, which was.
I was thinking Heroes. Heroes was phenomenal when it came to things like that, and making little insignificant things actually be incredibly important later on down the road.
Yeah. Well, I think it was Once Upon a Time. Lost. Lost was before Heroes. Then Heroes. I
never got into Lost. I probably should watch it just for.
It keeps you engaged because you keep on questioning what's going on. And then it creates all those theories. But at a certain point, you filled in so much. It's time to end the series because the mystery's kind of gone.
It's not even that they filled in so much. It's that they do the X-Files thing, and they do it worse than the X-Files, is which they'll bring up a mystery, and then that mystery is never resolved.
No, it's not that. No, if looking at Lost, it just got at a certain point is I'm not trying to say, oh, let me watch the next episode to see who this character is or what got them there.
Yeah.
They're already fully fleshed out. And once they're fully fleshed out, they're not that interesting after that. It's usually the mystery that keeps you going every week.
It's in the live stream link, the very top of my Discord.
Yeah. So that's what I mean.
Gets people watching it. Shadow's Discord.
And the serials, but that's what serials did very well. If you look at it, it's like, oh, next month, and they used to do a much better job. I think the problem that we're having nowadays.
Well, you know what? I think you hit it on the nail on the head there. That was because of the fact that it was a serial. They knew they couldn't give it all away.
Yeah,
you know what I mean. Don't give it all away for free. Make them earn it.
Well,
and with serialized installations, you have a motivation to hold back.
The problem with serialized publication is the author has no framework of what's going to happen in the next issue. Mm-hmm. So he might not have even known what to foreshadow because he hasn't even thought of it yet. You know what I mean?
Sort of, yeah. Well, especially in the older type serials. Yeah. Absolutely, I totally can see that being the case. But for example, Heroes again, I think that was well thought out, well in advance.
I mean, even Babylon 5 did that.
Yes, but we're not talking Babylon 5 right now, right? And the problem with old serial magazines is that they would have come across the same problem with Babylon 5 is they're never sure if they're going to have like their next story published, right?
Yeah,
Especially
that's
if
true.
he was
But this one was a
publishing.
5-parter. This was a 5-part series that was coming in, so they already knew that they were going to buy it from him, and he just had to separate it out. I mean, but you also learn
What?
in this
Uh,
Gods of Mars was written
Gods
as
of
a
Mars.
5-part. Yeah, it was written as a 5-parter. So he kind of knew that, hey, we're going to run your whole story over the next year or 6 months or whatever. But
Okay,
that
I
first,
could see, I could see, because most of those guys back then, they literally had no idea if they were gonna, get canceled or ever see another paycheck. So it was kind of rough on them. But if you know ahead of time that you've got a deal, so to speak, we're going to publish, your story in 5 installations. That's awesome.
well,
That must have been like hitting the jackpot back then.
Well,
well,
he
and,
was
and
well
remember, a lot of
known
them
by
start
then.
off as doing the pulp, which is just very one-off things. That's why they're not interconnected. And then once they establish themselves, then they would write a novella, and then that would just what would get sold. And if someone wanted to buy the novella, they'd say, "Hey, we're going to break up your novella into several months." And like, okay, that's cool. That's while we look at Robert E. Howard was only 30 when he died. I mean, imagine if he had been if he made it to his 50s, then he would have started doing a lot more of the writing style and everything else, and he would have become well established enough that he could write those longer stories, which he did in Hour of the Dragon. We would have got more of those, which is why you got the Tarzan stuff. The Tarzan books, which I think is like 26 books. If you look at them, he had all of that. But you have to establish yourself
I
first.
can't even imagine that. Can you, Justin, writing a 20 plus book series and not going freaking nuts?
You just gotta get used to it, right?
Yeah.
You gotta plot it out.
I would imagine it's the same as painting armies, Shadow.
And getting paid for it?
Yeah.
Well, maybe if you're lucky.
Once you have that established audience, they keep coming back and buying more. Now, you get some people like Tolkien.
More of my shitty paint jobs? Awesome.
But no, I mean, it's true. Like, once you start getting out, even for painting armies, if you do a good painting of armies for other people, they'll ask you to paint more armies. So then you start feeding into it. But if you aren't doing it, if you're like, well, I can only do one a year, then it's like, okay, great, I'll buy your one a year, but you're not going to get nearly as prolific as someone that's just, just banging it out.
Cranking them out like Fritz.
So
you should try plotting out a long form story, Shadow.
Well, I kind of am, but
again,
Showdown.
But I mean, even like for Howard and stuff, is they wrote really short stories. They would just try and throw stuff on the wall and see what sticks. And once it starts sticking, it's like, well, I'll keep on putting more effort into it.
It's a shame there isn't, a market for that sort of writing nowadays. It seems you've got a lot of that sort of chaff has been cut away from the wheat of the market. You know what I mean? There may be places I'm unaware of or unfamiliar with where you can sell the never ending supply of short stories, like Reader's Digest or some such.
There are magazines out there still. They just tend to be online, and there is like a lot of that gets moved to ebook format and is self-published.
Well, and here's the other part too. We do have that. It's called television shows. That's where most of the people went to that was doing all this.
Yeah, but it's kind of a completely different kind of writing. You can get away with stuff in a book.
It is.
You can't get away with even.
It is and it isn't. It's a serialization, and you're just you're doing all the grinding work year after year, and it becomes fairly routine for stuff. I mean, that's why when you look at these prolific writers, they're writing, how many books? What is it? It's a little bit different for the Kickstarter. How well has Brian Sanderson done? And everything is self-published for him?
No, he's not. All his stuff is not self-published.
No. But I mean,
he's just doing the self-published now,
right? Because he got big enough that he can self-publish, and he doesn't need any publishers.
Yeah, I don't know about you guys,
Well,
but I miss the days
most
where you
stuff is
could
self-published these
where you
days.
could go to a magazine or a newsstand, a magazine rack or a newsstand, your grocery store or whatever, and you could peruse, you
Well,
know.
it's because you got to find the places that just have those online. They're all digital now, and that's the
But
thing.
again,
It's not the same for me, you
right.
know.
Well,
It's
it's
not the
not
same, but
tactile, and I agree with you there.
Yeah,
it,
yeah, I
it, it,
really enjoy that. I know it's going to be full of ads and things, but sometimes those ads or those letter columns or the letter from the editor and things like that, they really felt more personal than anything I get from an online source of here, read my thing. It's just like, you know to me, it's almost like it's always been done by AI, even though it hasn't. It's got that sort of really impersonal, inhuman feel compared to like having to put the magazine down on the counter and pulling out your money, and they're like, "Ooh, that's interesting,"
Hmm.
uh, latest issue of
but I
Slugs or
mean,
whatever,
the same people that were doing
it maybe.
civilizations then just went into movies and TV shows. That's what happened to a lot of it. So, again, you adapt with the times. But when Carter came out, what was there? There was radio, and you had radio serializations, and then everything else was written. That was it. And now we go.
I hate to bring this up,
Yeah.
Omen, because that's your catchphrase. But remember the scene in The Watchmen several times with the black kid and the guy at the newsstand?
No.
You know what I mean? That
Hmm.
little
Yeah.
relationship they developed. You know what I
Mhm.
mean? I miss that sort of thing. I remember, when I would pick up my comic books every whenever I could afford them growing up until I actually went to comic book stores. When I would pick up a comic book at the 7-Eleven or the grocery store or a Mad magazine or something like that, the tiny little interaction, because maybe they had read it too, because it was Mad magazine and everybody read Mad magazine. They'd smile like, yeah, that's a good one, or even if you didn't have the conversation, you could feel the sort of camaraderie. They smile
Hmm.
because maybe they're remembering something that's in the magazine, like, okay, the kid's got good taste, or something like that.
So
And with the online stuff, it's just it's
I
not.
have a good story about this. Is years ago when I was like, I forgot, it was like 11 or 12. I would buy all these like choose your own adventure books and things, and they're like,
Hmm.
oh, we can get rid of these. Like, yeah, but that kid keeps coming in and buying them, so we're going to keep stocking them. That's literally and that's what the owners said for the bookstore that I would go to. That also had like the role playing games and stuff like that. But that said is, you know, I hate saying this, getting to know the store owner. I've
Grandma,
done
get a hold of
it.
me later if you can, please. Um, I just
But
saw that she's taken off. Sorry you
sure.
couldn't make it. No worries. I hope you read the book because it was good.
But I
Sorry.
mean, but whether it's backing, Bears Heroic and stuff, we are knowing some of the people who are writing these things, and we're
Yes.
backing them because we
Yes.
know them, and just like George did with his Arden, Ardenwin stuff. Well, you know what? If I didn't know him, I wouldn't even touch it. And so it was like, look, we do have those interactions. We're just not getting it on, from that impersonal to that personal. Now we just have the personal that we know the actual
It's the
people.
next best thing,
Yeah.
admittedly. But going forward with that, another usual question: would you recommend this series to someone? Now that we're one more book into it, is there someone you think might enjoy it? Especially
Shadow,
like,
I recommend this book to you.
okay, I will get right on it. Especially like someone younger who is so used to completely different things, but you're like, what? I bet so and so would freaking love this, just because of the way this or that. I'm going to start with you, Omen.
Oh, I absolutely love it. Well, to be fair, I love sci-fi, which this
No, I
is
mean,
sci-fi.
is there someone you can think of that you'd hand this book to and go, I think you'd love this?
No, but that's because my son is not into these books. He's more into, I would rather give him an electrical book, which he enjoys more. He likes
Mhm.
he likes more comic. But again, if I know someone that this would be up their alley, I would absolutely recommend these books. But do I know someone in particular? No. And the other problem I have is even when I recommend books to my friends, many of them are like, well, I don't have time. Okay, that's fine. But
Yay.
like trucker, like if you can find a trucker or someone that spends a long time in the car, these are great. If you want the
You mean the audiobook?
yeah, well, that's what I mean by the audiobook is because guess what? You're trapped there. You can now listen, and that's what I've heard is that why audiobooks have done so well is because a lot of people can listen to them while they do other things. Um, even when they're talking about whether it's podcasts or other stuff, is like women they're cooking food for their family can listen to an audiobook while they're cooking or something, and we just didn't have that back then.
That's why true crime is one of the most popular things, because women love that shit.
That's true. Well, and this is meant for the young male, to be fair, which is great.
Yeah.
That's why I love it as a kid, because when did I watch it? I was a young male.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, I got exposed to these when I was 10, and by the time I was 11 or 13, I think I had read maybe not all of Tarzan, but at least 20 of the Tarzan books and 13 of the or at least 12 of the John Carter books. I didn't see the Venus ones, but even when I went to other things like the library and stuff, and I tried going to look at these old books in the library, and they're just not there anymore. I don't know about your library, but I go to these books, and they might have one of these books, and not the whole series.
Like usually, you can ask them to get them in for you, or they'll have like the digital loan program.
Oh no, absolutely, they can. But I'm saying that for someone that's just wandering,
I need to go to my local library. I just want to go shopping there.
But I'm saying, but when you just wander the aisles, that's what catches your eyes. Oh, let me go see the book cover. I mean, I don't know how you guys were, but when I was a kid, the book cover sucked me in first, and then I would.
Yeah.
Yep.
You should always judge a book by its cover.
Yep.
And not the other way around.
Yeah, that's why we judge things, because we can tell a lot from the outside. Sherlock Holmes, should be required reading, just on what you can learn from that. TCG, is anybody you think would enjoy these books that youngsters, nephews, nieces, that sort of thing?
Nope. My niece definitely would not like this. She is, let's just say she's part of the modern crowd. Mm-hmm. And my nephews do not have the patience.
How old are your nephews?
6 and 8.
Okay.
Yeah, that's it.
Well, give them 3 years.
Give them 3 years.
And
if you can get a cheap copy of the paperbacks and just throw them around, they'll
actually, all these. Well, they used to have them. Now they've started putting everything behind. But when Apple first came out with a lot of their PDFs, a lot of these were free online because they are no longer copyrighted, so anyone can read them.
I've been looking for a good copy like of the ebooks that I can get, but I can't find them on. I hate the freaking layout of Gutenberg. I can never find anything on it.
I know. But I'm saying, but at least it's there. But
for like crafting and anybody else, believe it or not, I got the copy of the John Carter Omnibus from the comic book The Marvel series. That for me, I think would be a great gateway, because when I was 10, 1977, John Carter and I believe Conan first came out in the comic book form, or at least that's when I discovered them. Mm-hmm. And I do have number ones from that era. The visual aspect, especially the Marvel comics of John Carter, brought everything so much to life that it was seeing that on the shelf at my local Land of Ooze and Oz, that I was like, oh my God, what is this? That was like literally, because I was reading, instead of Tarzan, I was reading Doc Savage and Perry Rodan and things like that, because the covers like blew my socks off. I was at my local Gemco. Every week I'd get a book, and I saw these covers, and I'm just like, oh my God, what the heck is this? This isn't, football or, I Dream of Jeannie or whatever's on TV. This is something beyond all of that. You couldn't find, the closest you could find was Star Trek. Okay. And that was pretty understandable. You could, figure it out even at 10. This stuff was just, for lack of a better word, just gonzo as hell. And crafting, if you can find an omnibus or even some cheap copies of the comics, because they're not that expensive, they're not very highly sought after. Maybe not. Grab a number one, maybe grab one of the annuals or something, and lay it on the coffee table, and say, oh, you want to take a look at that, and just watch as they just get sucked in with just the visuals, because it's not medieval fantasy and it's not traditional science fiction. It's this weird amalgamation of something completely different, magical yet not. You know what I mean?
I'm gonna bring up the other point too. Is for Audible, the first three, at least when if you had the Audible Premium, you the first 3 books were one of those that were effectively free that you could listen to, which is what I did.
It's the first 7 on Audible now.
Oh,
And
really?
there's two versions of each of them. I think it's the first 7.
Well, no,
That's how I've been. That's
okay.
how I've been listening to it. That's why I was able to listen to it at 3.5 times speed.
Yeah, but I mean, when I did Audible, they only had the first 3 books in audio range, and I was like, oh, okay. Got through Warlord of Mars. I'm like, all right, that's fine. That's kind of where, players, anyone that reads the book, you can kind of edit the first 3, because after that, he starts going off into the children, and grandchildren of John Carter and things like that.
Agreed, George. Agreed. She was, but Deja Thoris, in comic form, or even the covers of the books. Because I think one of the books we were reading, or one of the audio, I think maybe it was the last one. It would, or maybe it was Elric, but it would like show all the different covers, as a chapter interlude sort of thing, where you got that visual with it. I really dug that, seeing the different covers, because this is something that's just you. It really does help to see it to
Sure.
get into it.
All right, well, you know what though, is all I remember was I got book 10 on my 10th birthday, and I was like, well, this is different, and of course it had semi-naked women on it, so it's like, oh, I got to take this to school to read it. And what was hilarious was everyone was like, oh my god, you're doing this, and then my what I thought was funny was
book
my
10,
mail.
book 10 out of 11. That's nice.
No, that was I got the first book was 10. Well, actually, I think there are 13 books in this one. But
I thought there were 11, but still, you get my point.
But I got that, and then that showed me in all the stuff that happened before, so I went back and reread it. But my 4th grade teachers said, "Oh yeah, I remember reading that book. That's really good." They ignored the cover so much they just saw it on there, and I think that's part of if you're going to be forced to read books,
It should be stuff you're interested in reading.
Yeah, exactly, and really having that said, is I also remember going to my my elementary school library and picking out everything on the occult, and so I was reading everything about vampires and werewolves and all sorts of stuff that they probably wouldn't allow now for what was in there.
What do you mean not allow? It's probably required reading.
Well, no, the stuff they allow some. They insist on some fucked up shit being on bookshelves.
Oh, well, he's talking about that, but I'm talking about I was reading about all of the stuff going back to the Dark Ages, and so dealing with that, and I was reading a bunch of the mythology and things like that for Egyptian and Greek, and I was just mesmerized by the whole thing. So I was
the same way with Hercules at the time. It was just so different, trying to understand, the dress and the mannerisms and the whole completely different world, because everything looks so different.
Well, and I think that's part of the problem I say part of the problem. I think that sometimes whenever, because I'm playing with someone that's about 15 years younger than I am, and you can tell that there's that age gap whenever she's like, oh, but slavery. And I went, slavery, the way you look at slavery is you're trying to look at the American version of slavery. I'm looking at slavery as the Greek and Roman and, the Egyptian style of slavery whenever I read the stuff in the books. And then Conan, and, it's what you've been immersed in a lot of times. I think the problem that we have nowadays is they're just not reading the old classics like they used to. They used to be everyone, to be fair, to be a liberal art. We talked about the humanities. You had to have Greek and Roman literature. You had to have the Bible. And those are being left out.
Yeah. Well, there's, the Harvard Classics series.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I'd recommend reading that. That's an American perspective on the stuff, so it's got a lot of your your literature in there too. You like stuff by Washington and whatnot, but
the humanities used to have all of that stuff, and nowadays it's being
the Harvard classics.
You know, and it's funny too because I was just thinking, you know, when you brought up slavery, you know, as deplorable as it was, these books actually, you know, when they were written, you know, that wasn't that far back. There were people, you know, in that time who could remember it, and here this guy was writing, you know, essentially, you know, a man coming to a brand new world and doing his best to put an end to that on a worldwide scale.
Well, and to be fair, at that time, that is when, you know, when you start looking at it, that's when a lot of acceleration of removing slavery was coming out too. You know, it's being stamped out everywhere around the world at that point. But most of us have grown up, whether if you read the Bible, there's slavery all in there, going back to Moses, of course. And then, you know, another slavery before that, but that's the big one. And then slavery, if you know, whenever you look at the Romans and Greeks, it's prevalent throughout. And this whole idea that it's only limited to if you're an American audience and it has to be the American, you know, and I was like, no, slavery was throughout the world.
That ideology is literally created to spread racial hatred.
Yes.
You know that, right?
I'm not doubting that at all. I'm just saying that the whole point of the things are the perspective of people going through and saying, hey, look, you know, this is through literature throughout. I'm finding out that most of the younger generations aren't even reading these books. They're reading Harry Potter, but they're not reading.
Well, there was slavery in Harry Potter too.
Oh, with the elves or whatever, with Gabi. Exactly. But my point being is that none of the characters, the main characters, were slaves. Whereas when you read Conan and John Carter, they all go through both being freemen and slaves, and sometimes multiple times going through that.
Yeah.
You know, I was just thinking, the last time we got any sort of a realistic, you know, heroic mindset view on that whole issue was Dark Sun, which was absolutely, you know, lifted from the pages of John Carter. The entire mentality, you know, of
Dark Sun. I don't think I've ever heard of that.
It's a world setting.
It's second edition.
Oh
yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
You know,
Dark Sun.
Putting the players down in that moral quandary, giving them, you know, or you know, attempting to encourage them to, you know, do something.
On that one.
It's okay. It's okay. Putting an end to that in their own limited fashion. You know, none of us, you know, grew up in that time or you know, condoned it in any way, shape, or form. But here's that great test. You know, what would you do? You know, everybody says, "Oh, well, if I lived back then, I would have freed the slaves." Well, okay.
Yeah, but because, like, you know, I'm so anti-slavery, I oppose uplift programs.
Right.
But that doesn't mean I'm not going to write a character whose, like, sole purpose is to capture more slaves and be as brutal as fucking possible, because it's fiction. It's fiction.
Well, here's
it's also the mindset of the era or world you're in. If you grew up in that time or that mindset as an adult, you wouldn't think, "Oh, I got to save all these people from slavery." You'd be like, "Well, I might treat them a little better than my father did, but I still need them."
But here's the whole point of it: is if you look at all these books, they almost always free slaves at some point, and then you know, the Great Slave Rebellion. Like even when you read Spartacus,
except for the core books.
Well, yeah.
No. Even the main character in Gore is trying to fucking free the slaves.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I was just trying to be, you know, crass.
But all these things, when you start looking at him, but it also makes a great villain. To say a villain is in there, you make him a slaver. That you've already built in your hatred of this person.
You're wrong, Omanow. The guy trying to free the slaves is the stinking villain. He's in there to destroy a society, after all.
Well, or to create a completely different society based purely on, you know, the evilest of evil, if you're going to be evil. Which reminds me of something else that, you know, I know nobody likes talking about it, and it's kind of depraved and whatnot. We've joked around quite a bit with gore references, but I still, when I read these books, I'm amazed at how, if they were written today, uh, you know, when Isis tells John to heap upon the black guys, that he defeated. He now kind of belongs to John Carter, and to heap upon him all the indignities. Had that been written today, those indignities would have been um, described, if you will. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? And it would have been very grapey and whatnot. The same with, uh, the ideas that certain other, essay kind of things, weren't happening in the world of John Carter, but they were only implied, and even then vaguely done so, as opposed to how today, if it was, in a book, it would have been, chapters upon chapters of,
It can be done well, right? You can do that and do it well, and you can do that and do it poorly.
Well, I'm
right?
going to mention the other part.
And sometimes you can do both in the same book.
But I'm saying, but if you look at like when the you remember we watched Citizen Kane,
right?
Mm-hmm.
So when we watched Citizen Kane, did you see the physical abuse that he heaped on his wife?
Rosebud.
Well, no. But I mean, but his wife. Remember when it would show him coming towards her, and then it would fade to black?
Mm-hmm.
Your mind filled in everything, and I think that's the problem that we have nowadays is that
Mm-hmm.
people that the reader has no imagination. Instead of understanding, and this is true of horror movies and everything else, you don't. The less you show, whether it's Jaws or Alien, the scarier the monster is. The more horrible you'll think of someone if they aren't showing everything in detail. Not everything needs to be detailed. Your mind fills in things next. That's what's so
right.
great.
My
technically, the Alien did a hybrid of that, because in the Alien, you don't actually, even at the end, you never get a good look at what the alien is, except when it gets shot out the door. That's when you get the most view of it. So they played off of both of your imagination and a prompt.
Yeah, but that's at the very end. That's at the very end. But the scary part comes in through the entire thing. If you don't know what it is, you aren't quite sure. You see bits and pieces.
Oh, yeah.
And that's what I'm saying as far as horror or all these other things is your mind. That's one of the reasons I like Lovecraft is he filled in just enough. Like my class line is he was eating his head like a candy cane. I don't have to. That's one line. I will fill in all the rest of oh my god, that's completely.
Well, that's kind of what I was getting at with the essay things. With the way people dressed, and not like saying that it's their fault for dressing that way, kind of thing at all. But you would think that certain activities would be very much in the minds of the bad guys. Like Thuvia. I was thinking, oh my god, how much was she molested or whatever you want to call it, throughout her life. But then you're like, oh wait, no, this is John Carter, so that's not happening. You know what I mean?
Well, it may have happened, but it was off to the side. And
well,
they
kind of reference it.
Yes and no. I mean,
they also play it off that. They play it off that. Yes, that does happen, but not that often. It's like they almost put it like only the depraved among the whatever the white skinned people's names were. Only the depraved,
right? Because it would be like
that. Otherwise, it's just slavery.
Well, because they also ate. There was that cannibalism thing, so it was kind of like you don't bang your chicken before.
And as you know, I support cannibalism.
So I mean, Justin.
But it was so much more wholesome with the chivalry. There was a different kind of chivalry.
30 minutes, you motherfuckers. Shit goes upside down, and not a severe upside down, just like a traffic jam. Light isn't changing fast enough at the crosswalk. 30 minutes, and I'm eating one of you motherfuckers.
And then we sadly disappointed.
And this guy's already cooked, so
exactly, George. I just I love that as well. Because the grown-ups knew what that meant. The kids had to wait until their wedding night to figure that out. But you just got I got such it was so refreshing and enjoyable to like tell myself hey, that wouldn't happen on John Carter's Mars. You know what I mean?
I'm going to bring it. It could,
it
but
would
remember,
happen.
Thuvia was also a noble woman. So there's that aspect too, which is, hey, you don't do that to noble women. But the whole idea up in there when you start listening to it is, oh, you'll become my lover. Now they don't explicitly say what that involves, but you know what that involves. The same thing of, oh, you kidnapped the princess. They all knew what that meant. When you kidnapped the princess, you knew what was going on.
Right, but you could also, on the other hand, as it were, uh, say, okay, that's not what's going on, because these people, I mean, the idea that the guy pulls a knife and you're not pulling your pistol, that kind of like, oh,
The
sorry,
honor.
yeah,
The
you
machismo
only pulled
honor.
out your dagger, okay, I'll pull out my dagger, we'll do this fair and square kind of thing. Today I'd be like, you brought a knife to a gunfight, blam.
Well,
Or Indiana
they did
Jones.
that, right? They did that a whole bunch. The bad guys did that a whole bunch in this book.
And that was one of the ways that you could tell the bad guy from it.
From the good guy, yes. I
It,
love that whole wholesome sort of chivalry that you just you know uh
And it gives
you
you a whole new appearance on Indiana Jones.
yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
it
I was
does.
thinking the
It
same
does.
thing.
Yeah.
Well, when the guy's doing his sword thing and Andy just goes, screw this. I mean, we all laughed and loved it and appreciated it, but like Justin just said, hey Raven, now thinking
Well,
about it, I'm like, man, how cool would it have been if Andy had just said, looked down at his pistol and just went like this. All right, come on, let's go. You know what I mean?
well,
How much
technically,
cooler would Andy have been?
well, technically, that fight was actually supposed to happen. In the middle of the shoot,
Well,
Harrison Ford was literally like, "Fuck this!" pulled out his prop pistol and shot the bad guy. He's like, "I'm not doing that fight."
No. He said,
Well,
I'm
he had to take a
incredibly
piss.
sick, and he checked with Steven Spielberg, and Steven Spielberg said yes. But let's not forget the fight with the plane. Remember the plane fight?
Mm-hmm.
Where
I don't remember him fighting a plane.
No. Well, remember the very first one? It's no. I mean, with the planes going around in a circle, and
No,
that
I
big
was
guy
just being a smartass.
I know, but I mean, but Indy's just getting his ass kicked in that one, and it's just so happens that situational awareness means more than being able to fight, and that's another thing of the pulp stuff is a lot of times you're saved by maybe not necessarily Deus ex machina, but you are saved by external events for yourself. Not that we
That's
do
one of
that
the things
well.
I was loving about these books. Like I said with the rescue scene out in the desert, I love that. Where it's you're sitting there, not literally, maybe you are, biting your nails as you're reading the magazine or listening to the audiobook. It's like, oh my gosh, even though I read it before, I'm like, oh my god, what's going on?
Now,
where
better writing would foreshadow that vehicle is out there, right?
But yes, but I liked the surprise. I like the cavalry coming up over the mountain, like in Lord of the Rings when Gandalf
But
arrives.
that was even foreshadowed in Lord of the Rings.
Well,
Right,
that was
but
foreshadowed in this book too. If you look at it with the Tharks, I'm trying to remember correctly, but like
no,
when
when the
got to the
Martian,
others,
when Cantos can and the airships come and save them, I was like not expecting it, and I liked that. You know what I mean?
that
You
was
eat
okay,
too
but there are
much
other
of
ones
this.
where he was getting and it may be the third book where he gets the Tharks coming in, and they're riding across, and where he's getting all the different races of the Martians together to fight, ISIS. They're all bringing that together in that. It's like, oh, okay, and then, like Woola grabs some, like Woola disappears for a while, then comes
Oh,
back.
I know where the hell was Woola in this book.
He was
I was
getting
heartbroken.
he was getting the reinforcements.
No, I know, but
Yeah.
he was like he was like there
The dog.
mentioned on like one page.
Right, but the whole point is, but that was allowing him to do the other stuff. But guess what? You have the courier, and no one minds if, for example, what is it, the Black Ark, where Aragorn disappears and then they reappear, and you're like, oh, okay, what happened?
That was another great literary moment. No worries, Justin.
But
and while Justin's gone, I'm going to say, if anybody out there knows where I can get a big giant, like plushy stuffed animal of Woola, I will cuddle with that every fucking night. He's one of my favorite characters of all time. Just one of the last great things Disney did was designing that Woola. Um, just fucking love that character. He's just
but the Disney one wasn't ugly enough.
well, Ian, I know, but
It was
especially
ugly.
if you look at the Michael Whalen versions of him, that was a scary ass critter.
But I mean, but there's so many things that the banthas and stuff. But I mean, they do foreshadow some of the things, and it does make a big difference when you lay a seed in there and then see it come to fruition 50 or 100 pages later. You're like,
Sure,
oh,
sure.
okay. One is you don't feel like you've been cheated, but the other one is like, oh, when does that occur? And it does create that tension of did they make it? And you don't know until they suddenly appear. Like, oh, okay, they did make it. And again, like I said, I'm confusing some of the second and third books together in there as well. But those are the things that are. He does foreshadow some of the stuff, which I think he does a good job for it. He does let you know that there's something else in there. When they were talking about the Therns and how they had infiltrated the Red Martians as dressing up as Red Martians, and they never knew it until this. And then
you're killing me here, Omen. We haven't got that far.
Oh, I'm sorry. I was thinking that, and then they lay out. Well, just the whole thing that they're laying out everything for.
No,
Isis.
I mean it's kind of in the movie they allude to that, and I have read these books up to I want to say like book 10. I haven't finished the whole series, which I am going to. I just don't know how I'm going to justify it with my busy other reading schedule.
You just do it like everything else. You don't justify. You just do.
Yeah, but between actually writing now and making videos and doing other things and trying to actually watch movies and TV shows now that I found a way I can do so to catch up with all these things that I've missed over the years. Because there's so many TV shows and movies you guys talk about that I'm like, I never saw it. I was doing other things. To be honest, most of that time I was actually gaming as opposed to watching things. And
well, to be fair on this, is I'm going back and reading a lot of the Appendix N stuff that I didn't as a kid. I mean, it's not like the Elric series. Fine, that sentence is getting kind of tiring for me, and I'm not even into the second book. But like, okay, the Jack Vance stuff. Never read the Jack Vance, and so whenever I hear people talk about High Guy Gaxi, I'm like, did you not read all the Avalon Hill games that came out? They all wrote this way.
They didn't. Every time I hear that, I'm just like, you ignorant fucks. You have no idea. Just because that's like reading Shakespeare and going, oh, it sucks because it was written back then.
No, it's full of cliches. It's full of cliches. It wasn't cliched when he wrote it. He made it it's cliches.
He damn near created the word cliche with his activities. But you need that foundational experience and understanding to understand where everything else comes from. It's like modern youngsters these days have no clue about anything prior to let's say the 80s. They have no idea.
Oh, please. Most of them don't know anything from before 2000.
Well,
right.
You know what? To be fair, as kids, did we know that much about that? No, we're now 50.
I don't. It's hard for me to say, because I grew up in a family that was, very into the last Great War, WW2, and they were always reading books on war and having me watch and read things that were way above my age and grade level, etc. But now it's
the real reason
I highly
why
recommend
it's hard for
Hitler's
you is
School of
because
Executioners.
But look, I grew up loving it too. But how many other kids in my class did? Maybe
like one in a class.
Yeah.
I imagine a lot of us, we had that one or two friends, per class or per grade, friends that kind of had the same sort of experience that we did. And I hate to use the NPC, term, where it seems like we are walking around surrounded by NPCs because it, makes us sound elitist.
You are one.
I mean,
I'm a great one though. I'm well written. Full of nuance and surprises and witty banter. No,
not really.
not a
Well,
bit.
I mean,
Of course not.
but if you look
But
at
that's
this,
what that's how I trick people into thinking I'm not an NPC.
well,
No, you don't.
but I mean, look at the other kids in your class that specialized in cars, and all they want to talk
That's
about is
good.
guitars.
Yeah.
Some of them would talk
Timing.
only about music and guitars. Some would only talk about cars. We all had
Mhm.
our own interest in there, and so to say, oh well, they don't have this. My problem really comes down to is that a lot of the people coming through do not have the classic background for learning that I did when I grew up. Is I was we always went to Greek mythology and Roman mythology, Egyptian mythology, and Norse mythology. We did because that was part of the culture. Nowadays,
One of my
all that.
best friends ever. Um, we became best friends because we both had a an appreciation of Bogart movies in my woodshop class. I think that's where I met him. And I was surrounded by all kinds of kids with different interests, and someone said something, and he and I both like quoted something from a Bogart movie or whatever. Which is like, what the fuck? There's another guy in here who knows what the fuck I'm talking about, and we were friends for many years until he moved away, and I never saw him again. But it's weird that. Today it seems like the kids have been more homogenized. Is that
I'm going to say the exact opposite.
Homogenized in their absurdity and diversity.
I'm not even going to say that because I deal with the kids that my son deals with and things like that. One is they don't have as much interest, but the other part is that the education is not having a commonality that it used to. There used to be a commonality of Western civilization, so people could reference it. Whether you liked it or not, you still had the Bible, you still had Greek mythology, you still had Norse, you had this common thing. And nowadays, just like I expect if I went to the Chinese and if I went to China, they would have Chinese have that foundational part of their own history and things. But now
It's things that you can use to reference to
yeah,
in order to communicate.
kind of like I was thinking that Star Trek episode where they all talked in metaphor. We used to have that, and we still do, when we reference lines from movies, like, even though it was never a real thing, the Beam Me Up Scotty, or we're not in Kansas anymore, but we're losing that, or at least it's being replaced with newer versions of that only
Yeah,
feels
what's that toilet one?
well, I'm not even thinking that the fragmentation. I mean, even if you look at the fragmentation of what people watch and everything else, the commonalities are not there that they used to have. Now, one of the things I did hear about Xi Jinping is one of the ladies that was talking about it. Is he knows all the cultural references for the Chinese. It's very similar with Putin in Russia, but now we go in this, and they're kind of just trying to get rid of it. Like I don't hear Trudeau, I don't hear any of the Western leaders referencing a lot of the old. Um, I've heard a little bit of Boris Johnson, not that you have like Boris Johnson, but a lot of them would talk about, the Charge of the Life Brigade, and a perfect example was it took me years to find it was the Spider and the Fly. My son finally had like, we're missing a lot of these things that when I was growing up as a kid were at least in there. There may be one story in there, like if anyone remembers The Lottery, which was a little short story in there. We all had, I hated a lot of the stories that I had to listen to in school, but it did give a commonality that when we all talked to each other, we all had a frame of reference of what is the Scarlet Letter, what is,
wow.
let's have those references. Well, no, I mean, but not that
Well, the Scarlet Letter was one of those stories that started the deconstructionism of our common language, right?
No, because that was in the
It's
1800s. That was in the early 1800s. That was Hawthorne. But the point being is that we had
the stuff started a lot sooner than a lot further back than you think.
Well, this stuff has gone back for thousands of years, but I'm saying the actual deconstruction of it was only in the more recent, where we don't have the commonalities for stuff. It used to be, even watching television. How many television stations did we have?
right. I was gonna bring that up.
And there
Do you
was
think
never
it's because-
anything on.
Yeah, but we all watch the same nothing.
Yes.
Now, after like the 80s, when there were 90 channels instead of 6 channels, it allowed people to fragment. I think was what Owen's getting to. That we no longer have that sort of funneling process.
be dependent on constant indoctrination for what should have been your education.
Well, I don't know that watching I Dream of Jeannie was necessarily indoctrination. It was just
it was because it's like imagine there was only 6 books in the library.
It's cultural
right?
references is the whole point. Do you have a cultural reference?
Yeah,
it watched it. At least you're
sure they
familiar
call
with
it programming for a reason, but
I mean,
it wasn't.
If I say Jerry Springer, we all know who Jerry Springer is, even if we didn't watch it. We knew what kind of thing. It's a cultural reference that we're talking about. That's what I'm referring to. Is not that I have to.
If I had a time machine, I would make sure nobody ever knew what Jerry Springer was.
Well, that's fine. Oh, because he. But no, my whole point is whether it was Donahue.
That too.
It doesn't matter. The point being is that we saw the commonalities that were there. And nowadays, the last commonality I can think of that's been happening where a lot of people watched the same thing and talked about the same stuff was Game of Thrones. And, by the time that the last 2 seasons came out, it went way downhill. But I remember going over and you could just talk. Like, I remember listening on the train. People would be talking about Game of Thrones while I was just sitting there. That was the last cultural commonality I would say that occurred.
Yeah.
As far as media or anything else out there. Harry Potter, of course, was a big one, which predated it as far as what was on TV and movies. But
yeah.
No, but
imagine living in a society where everything was like that and there was no television.
Yeah, it was called church. So
yes.
And that's why when you went to humanities, what did you have to know? You had to know Greek and Latin because you had to get all those backgrounds for being an educated person, which is not that I've ever read the Aeneid. I have never read the Iliad. I've read bits and pieces of the Iliad, but at least I'm familiar with what they.
Where's my copy of the Iliad anyway? Oh, it's right there.
Yeah, but again,
I think mine's in the garage.
Well, even the Norse mythology. I have Norse mythology books that are they're in cartoon form. They're in graphic novel form. And
that's how my India books are. But I could use some like it would be nice to have like a good like hardback series, like encyclopedia of the great mythologies. Even though I'd never read them because I got my deities and demigods book, and that's all you really need.
Well, okay. So, for example, this is what I got for Volume 3, which was
7 1/4 by
maybe a classic illustrated.
I mean, right there, this is the one with Neil Gaiman where he goes over it, and my son loves this because it has
it's mirrored.
So it's
Michael Moorcock, right?
No, this is what Neil Gaiman.
Oh, Neil Gaiman, what?
This is Norse mythology written by Neil Gaiman. That's my point.
The font and the fact that it's mirrored is kind of hard to read.
I don't know how to flip it, which I hate the fact it does that in the first place.
Well, you just turn the planet around from your direction.
Well, what I have to do is I have to go in the mirror and show it in the mirror behind.
That would work. We would be okay with that.
Yeah.
It's just your cell phone. There should be a symbol that's like 2 triangles like this, and one's filled in. You just tap that, and it'll flip the image.
I don't know. I'm not seeing it in mine. Not for the iPad for this, but yeah. But those are the things that when you look at, it's like, okay, let's see if I can get it.
So we're hitting the 2-hour mark, and I'm not gonna shut the show down. But I am.
We were talking about margins the other day. Look at the margins on that.
Oh my God, that's sweet.
Yeah. Well, you're supposed to have, if it's a larger book, you're supposed to have 1-inch margins. But if I remember correctly, if you look at the fonts that these old books were, like John Carter of Mars,
I think this font is 12.
Well, yeah, but that font was like 8. It was the old Player's Handbook style font. If you remember when I used to read the books, in the soft cover, and it was 160 pages. I remember reading that. And nowadays, I'm like, I want bigger font.
Yeah, 12 is what I prefer. When I'm printing, I'm going to go for 12.
So
especially because, like, this is the size of book that Amazon produces, which is what did I say the other day? 5 by
7. It's
5 by 8.
Okay, yeah.
So yeah, you have room for the larger font.
Well, and you know what? Years ago, and we're talking 20 years ago, they found out that the readers, as they were getting older, wanted bigger font, and so now more books are written for people our age rather than the 10 to 20-year-olds that it was when I was a kid.
When you release a book on Amazon, they even have a column that says, "Is this a large font book?" and it's 16 plus, and it creates a separate category that you have to check mark for that. You obviously have to like make your text body that font to begin with.
Yeah, but I'm saying, but they found out years ago. We're talking 20 years ago that more of the publishers were writing things in bigger fonts because the demographics.
The standard's 11 now.
Were older. No, the demographics were getting older, and they wanted bigger font to read because it was harder.
Because younger folks just aren't reading books.
Well yeah, there was.
They are, but the younger people just don't care if it's a bigger font, right?
Well, right.
It used to be 8, and now it's 11. I think it's 11 now, but I'm pretty sure it was like 8 before.
I mean, again, look at the player's handbook.
I have to look at some of my paperbacks to see.
Okay, so Shadow, go look at the player's handbook for first edition, seeing how small the font is. You know how that is.
I got it right here. Hold on a second.
Yeah,
that could also be a matter of like wanting to save on paper.
Well, it was. Well,
oh dear God, yeah, it's tiny. It's fucking tiny.
See that, but that's the way that the soft cover. But as we get older, we're like, no. And if you look at 5th edition, regardless of what you think about it, the font is now 10, 11, or 12. It's a much bigger font, which makes it easier to read. It
will be 12.
But then that also makes that makes it easier to read, but that also
find things too.
Yes.
So for next week, guys, let's wrap up.
This was my pick. So whoever was after me in the cycle, I think it was Omanal.
Is it me? I thought I had one that was the.
Well, I don't know what's up with
Grandma. I think mine was like 2 weeks ago, or whatever. It was 3 times ago because we had the.
So then it's either crafting or yours or Grandma, and I don't know what's up with Grandma. I know she's busy, and you know.
So crafting, what is your choice?
Not knowing my turn was coming up, I haven't even looked at the appendix in a while.
The list.
Yeah,
you can do what I did when I didn't bother looking up and just sit the next one in the series.
Well, do you know what I can? You know what I can tell you if we're going to do it? Then let's go for the first book of the Chronicles of Amber, or the.
We did that already.
Did we do that? Oh,
that was the first book.
Yeah,
the second book of Chronicles of Ambers. We could do that.
Oh, did I miss that one? I thought that
That was the first one.
That was the very first book club meeting. Yeah.
Oh, really? Okay, I just missed it.
You
zoned out.
You were here for it.
Oh, okay. I don't remember. Things blur over time. I've been in pain.
Yeah.
You know, no.
That was before your pain.
Before your pain. There was no time before your pain.
So you okay. So there was.
You still had hair back then.
Oh. Hey! Enough of that. Did he though? I'm starting to think he's one of the Therns. Because he looks. You could be the brother of the guy who played the Thern in the movie. So, do you have a
blonde wig? Omanal, do you have a blonde
wig?
No, I'm not.
You should get a blonde wig.
No, I'd be doing this the entire time.
Yeah.
I'd have to have the wind. I'd have to have the fan blowing so I could just pretend that I'm.
Again, that part's taken. So, which if
let me see what is an appendix in, because I have to go double check some of these things.
It's
just
same thing with
Amber Book 2.
Crafting Gamer. What do you have for yours?
He said he hadn't looked at the list lately. He didn't think it was his turn.
I haven't looked at it either. I have to pull it out. let me go look. Now, this isn't the perfect appendix, but it's the closest one that's right by me.
Well, let me just freaking pull out the real one.
I know. Well, they have an appendix in here.
Right, but is it the same? If it's not, then it's not.
It's not the true appendix N, but it has almost. It probably has 90% overlap.
Yeah, but the original is the original.
I know
I'm a
the
purist.
original.
Night of the Jabberwock?
That's
Night
not
of
on
the
the list.
Jabber.
So I'm on the wrong list.
Yeah, it's the Advanced Dungeons and Dragons Dungeon Master's Guide. Uh,
I thought um, Alice in Wonderland was on the list.
nope.
Is it? Is it? What about the? Well, I know that they mentioned Lord of the Rings, but I don't think that's technically part of it. But
Yeah, it is.
It is, but we're skipping over it because fuck that.
Yeah.
well,
Everybody's done
We've already
Tolkien.
I
done
was
it.
thinking
Down.
if you're going to do that, it's just go to the Hobbit instead,
Well,
because that.
how about a better idea? Why don't we wait until we're literally scraping the bottom of the barrel before we scrape the bottom of the barrel?
Well, that's not the bottom of the barrel. What I'm saying is the Hobbit is self-contained. You don't have to read 3 books
True,
to understand
Yeah,
it. That's what I
but
was
true, but it's been so overdone that if we waited like 8 years, it would still be overdone.
saying. Are you sure? No, I mean,
yes.
There's
I'm
like
trying to look.
6 different lists.
Yeah, I'm trying to figure out what the appendix
Are
N
you
is.
looking at the Advanced Dungeons and Dragons Dungeon Master's Guide Appendix N?
No, you never did link us that specific one.
I
Really?
think I did at one point. I have to go look for it, but I was trying to not get one that's too long, which is why I like The Hobbit. The Hobbit was a fast read. That's why I was picking that one. And it does set, to be fair, it sets almost all the races up that's in Advanced Dungeons and Dragons except for gnomes. So,
Fuck gnomes. Unless they're wearing a red coat and a blue cone hat.
no.
Here's one. Here's one I've never read. Um, Sterling Lanier's Hero's Journey.
Okay.
Anybody familiar with that one?
No, let's do
No.
it.
Because I'm wondering if it is the uh, like non-fiction, the treatise on the hero's journey, or if it's an actual story called the hero's journey. Could someone Google foo that for me?
No, because it's John Campbell that wrote The Hero's
Okay,
Journey.
okay. I mean that's. I mean there are a lot on the list, but the reason that one came to mind is I was thinking that maybe it was that, and of all the books in the series, maybe it's not actually fiction. It's more of a educational book, and then maybe we could take a little palate cleanser doing something like that. But if it is an actual, uh, fantasy novel, then we can go back to looking elsewhere. Uh, or we could
Did,
actually
did,
do a.
wait.
Or,
Did any of us actually read Lynn Carter?
Lynn Carter?
I'm trying to look
No.
at some of these.
no, we haven't done a Lynn Carter book. Let me go down the list real quick. You got Paul Anderson, John Belair's, Leigh Brackett, Frederick Brown, Lynn Carter, DeCamp, August
I'm thinking.
Derleth, Lord Dunsany,
Did we
Philip
read
Joseph
one by?
Farmer.
Did we read something by DeCamp, which was the
The
Conan
spider.
Yeah,
the
the
spider.
spider. Yeah, we got
Yeah.
Fox,
I'm looking.
Gardner Fox. We never read anything. Well, we did read Robert E. Howard, The Hero's Journey. I just mentioned. We haven't read any
What?
Lovecraft or A. Merritt or
Paul
Andre Norton.
Anderson? What about Paul Anderson?
I think he's on the list.
Yeah, 3 Hearts and 3 Lions.
Yeah,
I've
it's at the very top of the list.
Yeah.
There's also Andrew Offett, Fletcher Pratt, Fred Saberhagen. Although I would read the freaking the Berserker series, but that's me, and that's not on the list. Margaret St. Clair, Stanley Weinbaum, Wade Manley Wellman, which is actually I remember reading some of that, but I couldn't tell you what it was. Jack Williamson, and then that's pretty much it, other than people we've already read. So there's not a crap ton on the list. It looks bigger than it really is, especially when you take out, or it looks smaller than it is when you take out the things we've already covered. But we can always get back to this. Someone
Why do we pick The Broken Sword by Paul Anderson?
Is that okay? The way I'm seeing the thing, it goes Three Hearts, Three Lions, The High Crusade, and The Broken Sword. If one of them comes, like if they're all part of the same thing, I'd hate to like jump in at book 7. You know what I mean?
I understand that. I'm looking at this right. I was looking it up right now because I've never read it.
I've never read anything by Paul Anderson that I know of, and I'm okay with starting back at the top. You know what I mean?
I mean, there's nothing. Well, yeah, because we've been skipping over just because we're going through things that we knew. This is one of those that we don't know. And I'm just looking at some of this. It looks like it's let's see. I don't see it as it doesn't sound like it's a series. That's what I'm trying to say. It looks like it's an independent thing.
Hold on, I got Wikipedia right here. What the fuck is that? What that is?
Sure, well, that's what I'm looking at.
1961. Yeah.
So I'm looking at it, and it doesn't sound like it's part of a series. It just simply says it's.
Yeah, there's no predecessor or anything after it.
So I'd say let's do The Broken Sword, because looking at it, it says that Michael Moorcock said that it influenced his stories. He liked it better than Tolkien. And then they also talk about his use of older spellings for language. So I was like, okay, it seems like a good one to pick is The Broken Sword.
Yeah, it says reception here. The novel influenced the role-playing game Dungeons & Dragons, especially the original alignment system, which grouped all characters and creatures into law and chaos. The game drew from the novel's depiction of the troll whose body regenerates, healing itself extremely quickly when wounded. Other creatures from the game that were influenced by the novel included the Swan May and the Nixie. The novel also inspired the Paladin character class. Okay. I'm down with that. TCG, what do you think?
Sure. I mean, the only other thing that looked interesting that I can easily find anyway was something from Lovecraft.
Okay. If we do this, this counts as omens, and the following, which would put it into September, would be Lovecraft. And
Sounds fine by me.
All I ask is which Lovecraft story are you going to wait until later?
Well, he's got give him some time if he needs it.
Sure.
I would ask that if we read Lovecraft, let's make it one of the bigger ones. It doesn't have to be the Mountains of Madness, but there are some stories that are more than like 40 pages, just so we're not if you pick The Outsider and we're done in like 20 minutes, kind of thing.
Right. Well, yeah. So let's see. This one does have an audio book in there. So
that's all we spend on talking about the story anyway. So what does it matter?
I think we covered the usual questions. Don't forget this was a sequel, so I'm allowed a little leeway when it comes to the questions because some of them are irrelevant. But we did cover the main questions. Other than, is anybody going to read book 3 between now and next time we meet?
No,
just because they can't wait to find out what happens to John and Deja Thorns.
No.
So I'm the only one, really?
Don't read it. Don't waste your time.
You understand I'm wearing the John Carter T-shirt for a reason, and not just because we're doing the show. I mean, I literally have to buy a new version of the shirt. I've worn it so much.
Here's the point: if you enjoyed the first 2 books, then you got to finish it off with the third. If you
John Carter is one of my favorite IPs of all time.
So
Burroughs is one of my favorite top 3 authors of all time.
One at a time.
So yeah, I'm gonna read the book or listen to the audiobook. I'm a huge John Carter fan, but I get it. It's old. It's dated. It's your grandpa's science fiction.
Not why I said that.
No, I know. But there are folks out there who may watch this, and I get it. There may be stuff out there. Like, for example, I'm a huge fan of the Rift War saga by Raymond A. Feast. It's relatively modern. I really enjoyed the hell out of it. But, even now, it's like 20 to 30 years old, but I still consider it in the modern fantasy, and it's definitely written, in a more modern sense. But
I'm going to mention one here, which is, and this is why I have to laugh when they're saying that they're looking for diverse and blah blah blah. And my mother read it to me as a kid with this part, and yet no one wants to adapt that story apparently, even though it has a minority character that's a hero.
Earthsea or
no, Tarik, Tarik.
No.
My
Never even
mother
heard of
it
it.
probably 40 years ago, but it's a.
I think I've heard of it. If you do Dune, I'm in. It's not on the list, but when we get done with the list, we're going to keep going and kind of make up our own appendix, and maybe we'll call it Appendix O. I don't know.
No. It needs to be Appendix C for Cowboy.
Cowboy.
Okay, I could do that. Just
making fun of Cowboys. Yeah, Cowboys. Making fun of Shadow's Cowboy obsession.
That's fair.
But there must be no cowboy books on it whatsoever.
Right. Okay, that's fair too.
So the Broken Sword is on Audible for free if you have an Audible account. So you can just.
What about Three Hearts, Three Lions? I
have no idea. I just looked at.
I thought we were doing Three Hearts, Three Lions.
No. We're doing the Broken Sword, like I said. The Broken Sword.
Okay.
That's why we were looking up if they were in a series or not.
Yeah, exactly.
Now, let's see. What does it say about the Broken Sword? In case you're killing me.
What do you mean? I thought you just read it.
No, I literally actually read Three Hearts, Three Lions.
No. The Broken Sword doesn't say that it's part of a trilogy at all. It says that it's the.
No.
Yeah.
Neither does Three Hearts, Three Lions. 274 pages.
We just finished reading The Gods of Mard, so leave him alone, okay?
He's so flustered because he doesn't know how it ends. Ever since Steve Thoris got captured, he's like, no, I have to wait for the next book.
I've read the first 9 or 10 books. It's just been a very long time.
You're missing the whole joke of why you couldn't focus on what we were talking about.
No, because I thought we were
still horn dogging over the red.
No, because when you look at the appendix N, Three Hearts, Three Lions is first, then it goes Broken Sword, then something else, and I figured if we're going to go from the top, I was just looking at the first one and going, So Alban, you got it, Broken Sword. Someone just post a link for the audiobook.
Oh, cool.
Because I'm not buying it until I like it. But
I still buy the physical copy of it just because I like that physical copy just in case when I die someone pulls through it. Like
I think Shadow was asking someone to.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, if someone finds it posted in the Appendix N Book Club section, and then I'll get on that right after I'm done with book 3 of the Mars.
I'm looking on YouTube right now, but
I'm just buying the book right now because it's like $12 for the new thing. I'm like, okay, because I like having these books just in case, even if I don't read them all. I finally
paid $12. Fucking money bags here.
I don't know what you're
I'm cheap when it comes to paperbacks. I like old paperbacks, but I do also like old hardbacks even better.
But I don't know if I really like it. But like I said, I'm still trying to get through these, which are the Arabian Nights, 1001 Stories. So, those.
I gotta get that. I want to reread that.
The unedited versions, effectively.
Yeah.
So, but I heard some people complain like, "Oh my God, this is not for children."
It was back in the day.
Mm-hmm.
Well, they would curate which ones they gave to children and which ones they would give to adults.
I'm pretty sure the very first one isn't one of them.
The French book, when it was translated by that Frenchman who added the Aladdin story.
Yeah.
That was marketed for kids, and it was unedited.
But I mean that took a lot. Well, but
because I remember some details from the last time I read through it. I want to say there's some things in the very first story that I'm like, oh my God.
Yeah, but kids were more like that's
into
the thing. Like,
no, they weren't.
No.
They were more mature back then.
As parents, since you read the stories, you curated which ones you read to your kids and which ones you didn't. Because it's not like you didn't have 1,000 to pick from. Well, it's true. If you have
1,001.
Well, exactly. If
and that's only because the Frenchman added Aladdin, which is from China.
Well, but you had 1,000 in there. It's like, well, I can pick which ones.
Is there really 1,000 though? Is there really 1,000?
Yes.
Yeah, I believe that there are.
It's literally a collection of fables from the Middle East.
Yeah.
But are like some of them like a single page? How do you get away with
Yes.
that?
Yeah, but it's called a short story, bro.
Yeah, because you're not looking at
the whole thing. Called a limerick.
Is that it's supposed to be called? Well, looking at this book, let's see. This
or a haiku or a poem.
Volume 3. So like 996 is, each of them are about 2 to 3 pages long.
Okay.
But she was supposed to say that every night, and she leaving us a cliffhanger, and that's how she survived.
Yeah.
And then after 3 years, basically, he says, "Oh, okay, well, I'll marry you," because he would kill everyone that didn't entertain him. He would kill them. But one night with him, and did he kill her? So it's like, oh. So anyway, it's. But I'll have to go back and read those because if you're ever going to run Al Qadim, man, you got to know your Middle Eastern stuff. And even my friends who were in Iraq knew the stories because that's part of their culture. And I think that's what whenever we're talking about these things, we're missing a lot of those things from our culture.
Unifying thing is we used to have those tales, Canterbury Tales or whatever.
Well, there's Canterbury Tales. Well, even
Aesop's Fables, Grimm's Fairy Tales, and those things. I remember those being still a thing. Even Mother Goose. But then I think somewhere around the 70s or 80s, that just like evaporated.
Somewhere around Disney.
I'm not blaming Disney. I'm blaming that the schooling in the 90s got rid of Shakespeare because it said, "Oh, well, Shakespeare's one of these stuffy people." Instead of saying, "Hey, if you read Shakespeare, you don't have to agree with it, but he does give you the idea of how to write a story and how to do your pacing and things of that sort."
Well, I really think it was the breakdown of philosophy and teaching. It's the adding of all these subclasses. Education is reading, writing, home ec, shop, and gym. Maybe a musical
What about
instrument.
arithmetic?
Reading, writing is one, and then mathematics is the second. Sorry.
Well, that's the but those were the things that were in there, and most kids went to the little small.
I can see though,
but then you start adding in like geography and history. Like history is a thing you can select when picking a book to read. It's not like a course for fucking second graders.
Well, and here's the other part too. When we're starting to talk about this, if you actually look at it, gym was only added when they found out that the students were not in shape.
Hey, long time no see, Raven. Raven.
Gym was never part of the original schooling. The idea was that the kids will work out, outside of school.
It's that, and it was also like class wasn't from like 7 to 4. It was like half that.
Yeah, it was like so 8 till noon because kids were expected to come home and actually do chores.
Or even after that, you would be like out playing with your friends or whatever. Mm-hmm. You would be creating your own gym exercises on your own.
Yep, I can say from my own experience, around the 70s, Justin does have a point when it comes to Disney. Disney tried to usurp or replace a lot of the things that we were talking about and become the
there were watered down versions.
The American version of the culture, as it were, for children's entertainment at least. But I also remember noting that between the 70s and 80s, there came a big sort of cultural, just do you, man. Just whatever you do is fine. As long as you're not hurting anybody, kind of mentality that pushed all of the hard sciences and the hard facts from being important to being, well, if that's your thing, then that's your thing. But everybody doesn't need that.
Truth became relative and that kind of.
So I noticed that in the 1990s, 50s after I gotten out of school.
Yeah, but the framework was being laid before that.
Well, the framework, of course, was being laid before it. But I'm saying, when I actually saw that they could start getting rid of it, is when they started getting rid of Shakespeare in the 1990s in school. So that's some of the things. But then again, what education?
Yeah, because we did have Shakespeare in high school and hell, even middle school. After that, I was in college taking other classes, and that was not
okay. But here's the other point: is how far did most people get an education before the 1950s?
High school, if they were lucky.
If they were lucky, most people were 8th grade. My grandfather was 8th grade. My other grandfather was lucky that he finished high school. But I mean, that's one of those things when, oh my God, what do you mean people don't finish high school? But it didn't become the norm, because at 8th grade, you were assumed to have all the knowledge that you needed to do everything, including auto mechanics and everything else, unless you're going to become an engineer or something specialized.
You would learn that stuff because there was like the incentive
that's all there was.
To learn it.
And that's all there was. They didn't go into all these other, they didn't even have art classes, in our, at least my parents, if you wanted art, you went to college. There was no art class in high school.
Or you learned it yourself.
Right.
Yeah.
On your own time.
But that was the expectation. But then people had more free time too to do certain things.
Well, it wasn't free time. They had to go home and help with chores or take care of their younger siblings, or maybe even they had a paper route or something like that, or they were mowing lawns, or they were they were expected to
But you would still find time to do that stuff if you want.
So I'm going to say this much: even when I worked 13 hours a day when I was in the Navy, I was probably going through a book a week, just the amount of time I had at lunch, because that was my one chance of escaping from while I was in there. And people forget about that. Nowadays I can't spend more than like 20 minutes trying to read a book, which is my own fault, unless the RPG. But yeah, it's but that's on me. That's not on the fact that things have changed. So anyway, I got to get going. I got to do my physical therapy exercises. So
no worries. I was going to wrap it up in 3 minutes because
you were going to wrap it up 22 minutes ago.
No. I said I was going to wrap up the show, but continue talking because we were having such an interesting conversation.
Okay.
That's why I wanted to knock out what book we're going to read next. But for everybody else out there who's stuck around, George. And
I want to say,
and everybody else who was here. Grandma showed up. Doc was here for a while. Appreciate it, guys. And I know a bunch of people are going to come in after the fact and watch it. That always blows me away when I see how many people watch the show after the fact. This was a good book. I enjoyed the hell out of it. I can't wait to get into the next one, but.
I want to say something though. I caught right before I went to the bathroom. You were saying you wanted someone to find you a plushie of the dog.
I knew you were going to hear that.
Okay, so what you need to do is you need to get the templates. You need to find like a dog template and change it around with the patterns.
Mm-hmm.
Add the extra set of legs in there, just like extend the body, and then send them to TCG, and he can make it for you out of
ostrich hide.
Ostrich hide.
Oh yeah,
you get the right texture. Right texture.
Just what I want, a big leather sweaty pillow.
Hey, you know what? It's my son's
I do actually make leather throw pillows, so I could do it.
Yeah. Oh, really? Cool.
It'd be a lot more work because it's got like how
eight legs or 10 legs.
Well,
no, I think it only had 6.
I don't know about you guys, but
the picture only had 6, I think.
A lot of people also learned other skills, but yeah, it's anyway. So we're going to read The Broken Sword. And
sure.
I can't find it on YouTube.
What's that?
So I'll see if I can. I can't find it on YouTube.
Sure.
No guarantees. I'll try and find it in the next day or two. Shadow will remind me tomorrow at lunch.
Yes, he will, because we have a show tomorrow. Speaking
and
of which, looking forward to that, Justin.
For it.
And
Google
crafting. Real quick, because just in case I don't talk to you later tonight, I already started my book for your pick on the book challenge or the writing challenge, but I've left some places where I just put a bunch of stars because, like, I wrote the blank empire and things like that because I want you to fill those in so that you can use it for your thing if you want. Because I instead of you know because I don't want anybody to. I'm not going to turn it in until I'm done, or at least before I need some editing and things like that. But I don't want to. I don't want to give you guys any ideas. I don't want you stealing my ideas. No, because I'm doing this one to hopefully help out TCG in his game project. I really want to, put a little bit more into it because everything else has just flown so easy for
Hey,
me.
Grandma.
Is she back?
She just walked past.
Oh, the other grandma. So when you see it, that's why I've done that, is for you to fill that stuff out so you can make it fit if you want. If not, just make up a name, and I don't care. But I think you're gonna like it. I think I've
Yeah.
honestly, I think I'll be done with it by within the first week. Well, actually, tomorrow.
Wow.
Take time, man. Breathe. Relax.
Tomorrow would be the first week, so that won't. I think I'll be done by next Friday.
Yeah.
And I'm not rushing it at all. I'm doing research and looking up numbers and things like that for.
Don't do research. Research.
Well, I wanted to get some ideas of dimensions and things for actual sailing ships, kind of thing.
We
Just
used to do 1 in 1200 scale.
Well, it's about sailing ships, so it's airships, I should say. So it's got to be at least about one airship. So I got to have like a mental idea of what it looks like.
Nah, you could have it about some people that are worried about airships attacking them on a rock somewhere.
Is that what you're doing?
No idea. I haven't even thought of anything yet.
Oh, okay. Yeah. See, I also want Justin to squirm. He's like, oh shit.
I've been working on 2 other stories for some other things.
Yeah, same here.
If you want, I can send you what I'm working on so far.
I still need to catch up because
you won't like it. It won't be for you.
It doesn't matter, We help each other out by reading each other's work and then going, hey, not so good. You need to fix this or fix that. Although I don't know how I'm going to fix one issue. The very first issue, I'm not sure what to do with that, but the other one, I think I fixed it to make it sound better, and less of the complaint you had. But we can do all this stuff later, off camera, whatever. I'm gonna end the show. Everybody out there, Raven, really good to see you again, man. You should pop in more often. And say hi to the other Raven who was just here. I don't know if she's still here, but you guys, you get along like 2 peas in a pod. You're both into that tarot stuff and runes and all that stuff. So
the reason the other Raven's not here is because she was teleported by a Yeti into the Himalayas.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure the other Raven suffers from seizures.
McMahon.
Yeah,
I was thinking it's more like that parasite that rats get or something. She's got like that worm in her head. That
from all the cats.
Yeah.
Maybe.
I
don't know. I was listening to some of her blackout stories, and that they sound like they could be seizures.
It's possible. Of course, we're just teasing Raven.
No, I'm not. I'm saying you should go talk to a doctor. You might actually
get a CAT scan and shit. Yeah,
you might have brain cancer.
Don't say that. Don't even put that out there.
The sooner she gets checked out, the sooner she.
What, gets a chunk of her brain scooped out? Okay, you're all better now. We like her just the way she is. Toxoplasmosis. Of course, you knew what that was.
Toxoplasmosis. Yeah.
Well, this is why I don't believe in having cats. Yeah.
Just saying. You don't want to risk it. You don't want to let things like that go unchecked because,
Then you won't get to hang out with us.
Well, yeah. If they go unchecked, you could
No, nobody wants that.
Yeah.
If you're not careful, you can become like Justin. So you have to have yourself checked out.
Hey, I resemble that remark.
You kind of do. You kind of do. Not 100%, but you're getting there.
I don't 100% resemble myself.
Yes.
That's impressive. Shadow.
Oh,
I think your math is wrong.
I know that's what makes it funny. See, we have a pretty good time here at Raven, um, and we're all good friends. We tease each other because that's what friends do. If you know someone they don't give you shit, on a
They
certain
don't
level,
like you.
yeah, they don't. They really don't. They got no respect for you, man. Not one. Well, not one. Not one little bit.
Well,
Is Owen like doing his workout right here?
Yeah, I am. While you guys are doing your thing, why in the world am I wasting my time not trying to do some of my exercises? So,
You know what, Reagan? You won't regret 1 minute of it if you've got any sort of heart and soul in you. You will love it. It'll be one of your top 5 favorites. Just saying.
Mm-hmm. I wish they had the entire series on Audible.
Which series?
Assholes. Barsoon.
Oh, I know. That was why I was frustrated with the 3. The 7 was I had to pay for it. Well, I'll just listen to the first 3. So and what's 5?
I want it all. I want it all on like rotoscope animated. Ralph Bakshi, Frazetta style.
You know what? If you become as rich as George Soros, you could be doing a lot more productive things like doing that, rather than trying.
Hey, how do you guys know I'm not?
I know.
We know you are. George.
Been around too long not to be.
Yeah. I just can't get the right voice actors. I'm always looking for voice actors for Jackie's web series. In reality, I've got other secret projects going on, and that's what it is.
He's like Brack's dad, from the Brack show.
Oh,
yeah, it's like, Mother, let me see what I actually do, and like he suddenly goes down in the whole thing, and he has the whole, underground lair with all the stuff he's doing down.
Brock?
The Brack show.
Space Ghost.
Brack.
Yeah.
Oh, Space Ghost. Yeah, with the
we had the
3
Brack
spider,
show.
grasshopper people.
Well,
Did it?
But in this case, with the Brack show, is they had father who always was sitting there reading the paper, and of course his wife was getting mad at him. He said, "Let me show you something," and all of a sudden he goes down and he has like this big giant underground lair, and, with all of the computers and everything. Oh, this is just what he lets everyone else think he does. So.
Hey, Raven, get a hold of me at that at Gmail address, shadowandsun47gmail.com. Get a hold of me because Jackie's, my son's got a web series and he's always looking for people. And if you can do voices, that would make his day. Because believe it or not, most of the people who have done voice work for his show are fellow YouTubers, so that would be fantastic to have another YouTuber help out with this project. And I'll send you a link to where you can watch his thing. I think you'd get a kick out of it. It's trippy and acidic and weird, despite the fact that he's only 16, or maybe because he's only 16. I don't know, but.
Great. You should be the next Stanley Kubrick.
Hey, I'm okay with that. Someone's got to take care of me when I'm old and gray.
Red rum. Please don't, pal. It's instead of me like, please don't, Jackie. As he's like ready to pull the plug. Yeah.
Yes. But Shadow's last words won't be Rosebud. It'll be, I didn't film enough Rosebuds.
Oh, dude, gross. And with that, folks, I'm going to say goodnight because Wow, I need some hydrogen peroxide for my ears and brain. All right, thanks, Raven. Appreciate that. You guys out there in TV land, you have a great evening. And if we don't see you soon, have a great weekend. But we'll be over on Justin's show 9 a.m. tomorrow morning,
12 noon. My
Pacific
time.
avocado time, or 12 noon that other
Real
way.
time.
Yeah.
Reality time.
And I may review a book that I thought I was going to love but did not tomorrow by a
Which one
very
is it?
famous Razor Fists of the Long Moonlight.
Okay.
Just oh yeah, oh man.
Ooh.
Yeah. That actually does sound like you, man. But anyways, folks, take care. Love you guys. We'll see you tomorrow. As always.